Chapter 10-19. Junior brother Feng Yu, are you sure you're not joking with me? Xianjian Valkyrie thought he had misheard. The old man had a lot of ways to protect himself. He had even mastered the God King Destroyer sword. Even a peak Divine Spirit Realm expert was no match for him. But he had died? If Feng Yu had not seen it with his own eyes and told him about it, Xianjian Valkyrie would not have believed it. Junior brother Feng Yu, tell me everything about how the successor of the God King Slayer killed Kenzu. Don't hide anything from me. Xianjian Valkyrie suddenly rushed over. He seemed to have recalled something and his eyes were filled with doubt. He grabbed Feng Yu's hand and said anxiously. It was as if something extraordinary would happen if he was a little late. Feng Yu naturally believed Xianjian Valkyrie. Seeing him like this, he thought of the third Godslayer fragment. Man Quangzuan did not have it with him, and he had said such a strange threat before he died. Instantly, Feng Yu was no longer relaxed. He felt an inexplicable sense of danger. Feng Yu immediately withdrew the smile on his face. He thought for a while and concealed his identity as the successor of the Godslayer realm expert. Then, he narrated the battle in detail as a bystander. He did not leave out anything. As expected, when he heard Feng Yu's narration of the last scene, and Savage Venerable's words that were so crazy that it was as if he had lost his mind, the Xianjian martial god's expression changed greatly, and his aura fluctuated. Oh no! It's just as I thought. This old thief is sinister to the extreme. He has a lot of ways to protect himself. When I was under his control, I followed him for a period of time. I vaguely heard about it from the other martial gods of the Jian clan. This old thing is really afraid of death. He once performed a technique that was beyond the first stage of the Divine Spirit Realm and split his main soul into two halves. Both halves of his soul were incomplete, but because of that, he had two main souls. Normally, an incomplete main soul would be sleeping in the Jian clan. The other incomplete main soul occupies the body and walks in the world. Xianjian Valkyrie's voice became more and more hurried as he spoke. He looked in the direction of the Jian clan from afar and emitted an incomparable killing intent. At this moment, half of his true soul had perished. Even if he wanted to awaken the other half of his true soul in the Jian family, he would still need some time to do so. Right now, it could be said that this was the best opportunity for the Jian clan to completely fall from the sky. Feng Yu's heart sank after hearing this. His face turned extremely unpleasant, as expected of the sinister and ruthless man Quangzuan. After living in the God realm for so many years, he had sent away two God Kings. He was actually so ruthless to himself. A true soul had been split into two halves. Just so that one day, in order to deal with such a situation, his soul wouldn't be completely scattered. Feng Yu actually didn't realize that Wang Zun's true soul was in an incomplete state after such a long fight. Old fox! Damn it! After the fall of the Supreme God, the top Wang Zun's God King, he's still so cautious. He's simply cowardly to the extreme. Feng Yu cursed in his heart. At this moment, Xianjian Valkyrie didn't have the intention to stay here for long. His figure rose slightly and stood in the sky. He was about to head in the direction of the Jian clan. Man Wang Zun, also known as Kenzu Jian Tianhen, had stolen the inheritance of Kenshin of Gojoseon that Xianjian Valkyrie had obtained. If Xianjian Valkyrie still wanted to step into the God realm, he had to settle this with Jian Tianhen. Only one of them could live, because in the God realm, there was only one person who could take the inheritance of sword principle left by Kenshin of Gojoseon. Old fox, you made me a slave for 100,000 years. You actually want to rob me of my opportunity and destroy my opportunity to ascend to the God realm. Xianjian Valkyrie, for the first time, burst out with such a crazy killing intent. Boom! Then, he turned into a sword light that soared into the sky. With the aura of a supreme martial god that looked down on the entire human world, he rushed directly in the direction of the Jian clan. To the Xianjian martial god, the sword god emperor was the person he respected the most. He had been admiring the sword god emperor since 100,000 years ago. He treated the sword god emperor as his master, or even his father. If Xianjian Valkyrie couldn't continue to cultivate the sword principle of Kenshin of Gojoseon, which was his master and father, it would be more painful than killing him. He's just an incomplete true soul. Even if he's Wang Zun's god king, so what? That old fox only has half of his true soul left. He can't cause any trouble. You should know that the person who went to kill him is Xianjian Valkyrie, the true successor of Kenshin of Gojoseon, a supreme martial god. Speaking of which, Xianjian Valkyrie was just a 9-star martial god not long ago. He was about to become the 4th supreme martial god. I didn't expect his sword principle to have improved so much in such a short time. He has become a genuine supreme martial god and is infinitely close to the 3rd god realm. Fang Yu sighed. He stood in the Mystic Origin mountain range and watched Xianjian Valkyrie, his senior brother, leave. Xianjian Valkyrie. Fang Yu had a good impression of him. When he was facing sword god Qihua from the Jian clan, Xianjian Valkyrie had helped him block sword god Qihua's murderous intent. He really treated him as his junior brother and didn't rob him of the Kenshin of Gojoseon's memories. Moreover, he had given him the 9 supreme divine crystal, which were extremely important to him. Senior brother, you're such a good person. When the day comes when I rise up and dominate the 3 realms of the ancient regions and wield the authority of the Divine King, I will definitely give him the memories of the Sword God King and let him become the true successor of the Sword God King. Fang Yu said slowly. After going through the netherworld and fighting with Wang Zun, Fang Yu understood that Godslayer's supreme slaughter principle was more suitable for his cultivation path. The memories of Kenshin of Gojoseon's direct descendants could allow Fang Yu to display sword principle attainments that were above the 3 realms of the ancient region. However, it wasn't Fang Yu's own sword principle attainments. Moreover, Fang Yu wasn't a pure sword cultivator like Kenshin of Gojoseon. If he walked this sword principle, he probably wouldn't be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Kenshin of Gojoseon. If he walked the slaughter principle and cultivated the sword principle, Fang Yu might be able to reach Godslayer's level. He might even inherit the Godslayer's authority and continue to grow to the level that Godslayer should have had the chance to reach. Chapter 10:20. Tisk Tisk. After fighting with the 4 gods in Ghost Prison, I'm biting off more than I can chew. I'm only an emperor, an ant in the ancient region 3 worlds. How dare I dream of becoming an immortal king? Fang Yu burst into laughter and shook his head slightly. Then he soared into the sky and headed towards the depths of the mystic mountain range where the 4 great sects were. 1 billion Xian crystals. If the 4 great sects of the northern region wanted to leave the Mystic Origin mountain range alive, how could they not pay him, Fang Yu? Without 1 billion Xian crystals, Fang Yu would still be an insignificant emperor. This was not what Fang Yu wanted to see. After all, Fang Yu's main purpose in coming to the Mystic Mountain Range was to get the 1 billion Xian crystals and the super treasure chest. Killing Wang Zun and scaring off the 2 ultimate gods with the 9 great supreme divine crystal had become incidental. The super treasure chest was already in his hands. It could be said that it paved the way for Fang Yu to become a 9-star great sovereign and even the martial god realm. Fang Yu's path to becoming a martial god realm was not going to be stopped by 1 billion Xian crystals. The 4 great sects in the northern region had to bear the burden of 1 billion Xian crystals. After all, the elders of the 5 great sects in the northern region had almost joined forces to kill Fang Yu in the king's capital. As for the remaining 4 high sects, they're considered to be rather lucky. Otherwise, one of them would have to replace the ghost prison and be killed by me. For this, they should be deeply grateful. Fang Yu thought slowly. Unfortunately, the four great sects of the northern region didn't seem to be grateful at all. While the two divine spirit realm experts were fighting in the small world in the depths of the mystic origin mountain range, they completely forgot about the 1 billion profound crystals that Fang Yu needed as tribute. At this moment, mystic origin mountain range, where the 5 great sects were stationed, the 4 great sects emperors who were still alive were all gathered at the ghost prison mountain gate. In this group of Emperor Realm experts, the strongest among them were only 3 peak Imperial Emperors. They stared at the ghost prison's entrance with burning passion, longing to find some traces or treasures left behind by Divine Spirit Realm experts. However, at this moment, none of them dared to step inside. They were still in awe of the 2 godly Spirit Realm experts who had already disappeared. At this moment, one of the Sky Blade sects guarding Emperor Realm powerhouses said worriedly to their sect's peak Emperor Realm patriarch, "Lord Sky Saber Ancestor, that monstrous emperor with terrifying strength has asked us to hand over all our Xian crystals. Our sects are gathered here. Instead of collecting Xian crystals, we are waiting for the arrival of that terrifying great emperor. What if we irritate him?" The martial emperors from the other sects also panicked when they heard this. They quickly voiced out their concerns. "That's right. Aren't the treasures and inheritances of the divine spirit realm a bit too unrealistic? Our 5 great sects are just ordinary great emperor realm forces. I'm afraid we won't be able to keep such an opportunity even if we get it. On the other hand, if we irritate that terrifying great emperor, our 4 great sects will be in danger of being annihilated." Every time they recalled how Fang Yu had killed the peerless Emperor Ghost and Elder Yu, the martial monarchs guarding the mountain felt a chill run down their spines. They had witnessed Fang Yu's strength with their own eyes, so they were extremely terrified of Fang Yu. However, the martial emperors from the other sects didn't think so. Among them, the heavenly Saber Ancestor had an incomparably mocking look on his face. He stared straight at the 4 experts who were scared out of their wits and said in a mocking tone, "You're as cowardly as mice. The martial emperors from our 4 great sects are gathered here. Can't we deal with a puny great emperor realm cultivator? If the 4 great sects really have to pay all the mysterious crystals because of the threat of a great emperor realm cultivator, then we'll become a laughing stock and become a laughing stock. That kid, even if he didn't die in the ghost prison, with so many of us here, it's enough to kill him in a battle between 2 great divine spirit realm experts." The martial emperors from the 4 great sects were all mocking the martial emperors from the 4 great sects for being as cowardly as mice. The martial emperors were so angry that their bodies trembled. They cupped their fists with a cold smile and left with a flick of their sleeve. "You're all courting death. We won't serve you anymore. We'll leave now. Goodbye." After that, the 3 great emperors and the peak great saint all flung their sleeves, threw all the mysterious crystals they had on them to the ground and left. Their actions immediately attracted an even louder wave of mocking laughter, as well as some disdain. "For cowards, it's good that they're gone. Ha ha! Come on, divide these Xian crystals. After today, send a letter to the Xianfeng region and expel these 4 cowards from the 4 great sections. Spread the news of their cowardice. What the hell? They're afraid of a mere great emperor realm expert. At this level, they've lived for so many years in vain." Just as the mocking voices were getting louder, above the sky, a young man in a black cloak with a gloomy expression slowly descended. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. This person was Fang Yu. Moreover, Fang Yu had been here for some time. He had seen the behavior of the great emperors from the 4 great sections. What made Fang Yu angry was that the great emperors from the 4 great sects didn't know that they were going to die. They didn't even prepare mysterious crystals and were still waiting to divide the gods' treasures and inheritances that might exist in the ghost prison? Ha ha! What a joke! If I knew this was going to happen, I would have eliminated the 4 great sects first. I would have gotten rid of these 4 weak sections. With the super treasure chests, I would have been able to face the 4 gods, including the ghost sword god. Fang Yu said coldly. He no longer had any patience for the 4 great sections. Since he had given the 4 great sects a chance to live, these so-called great emperors didn't know how to cherish it. Therefore, they shouldn't blame him for being ruthless and slaughtering them. 1 billion mysterious crystals. Fang Yu was going to get them himself. However, this time, the 1 billion Xian crystals would be stained with blood when he reached out his hand to take them. There was no such thing as morality in the ancient realm. The only thing that mattered was the size of one's fist and the hierarchy between the strong and the weak. No matter what the strong did, it was something they should do. It was all reasonable. This was the cruel truth of the 3 realms of the ancient realm. No matter where one was in the 3 realms of the ancient realm, the basic rule was the survival of the fittest. Chapter 10:21. Get lost. Where did this rogue Emperor Realm cultivator come from? This is the territory of the 4 great sects. The opportunities here are not something you can take advantage of. Get lost. One of the Scarlet Snow sect's Emperor Realm masters saw Fang Yu and immediately used his technique. 1,000-foot-tall Yuan Qi giant palm slammed towards Fang Yu. Boom! There was a loud explosion. The 1,000-foot-tall Yuan Qi giant palm shattered into pieces. A majestic, ancient, and 10,000-foot-tall Sin throne covered the sky and floated above the 5 great sects. How is this possible? What a terrifying Emperor Realm divine power! Who are you? Can you tell us your name? We, the 4 great sects, will definitely apologize for our impudence. The expressions of all the peak imperial emperors of the 4 high sects changed when they saw the evil throne. Even a 7-star Emperor Realm Master would not be able to withstand the terrifying killing power of the Sin throne. If they dared to fight against this young Emperor Realm Master, they would definitely die. This mysterious young Emperor Realm Master was terrifyingly strong. He was comparable to a 7-star Emperor Realm Master or even an 8-star Emperor Realm Master. At this moment, the top masters of the 4 great sects could only beg for mercy and find a way to appease the young Emperor Realm Master's anger. Otherwise, with so many Emperor Realm Masters of the 4 great sects, even if they attacked together, they would all die miserably. You're asking me who I am? Ha 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 ha! What a joke! I didn't expect you to not know me. Wasn't I the person you were talking about just now? At this moment, Fang Yu laughed under the Sin throne in the face of the panic of the 4 great sects' Emperor Realm Masters. However, his laughter was filled with mockery. What? The terrifying young man in front of them who was comparable to a 7-star Emperor Realm Master or even an 8-star Emperor Realm Master was the monstrous Emperor Realm Master that the 4 great sects were in awe of. Boom! At this moment the scene was boiling. All the Emperor Realm Masters of the 4 great sects felt their scalps go numb and their hair stood on end. We're willing to offer mysterious crystals. All the mysterious crystals of the 4 great sects are yours. Even if you want us to be your slaves, we're willing to do so. There was a roar. The peak Emperor Realm Masters of the 4 great sects did not even have the courage to fight in front of Fang Yu. They all begged for mercy. However, Fang Yu did not give them a chance. Too late. You've wasted a lot of my time. So, go to hell. Fang Yu slowly. Boom. At this moment, the incomparably terrifying Sin throne, which was over 10,000 feet tall and possessed an unparalleled killing power, crashed down with a loud rumble. All the martial emperors of the 4 greater sects didn't even have the right to resist the throne of Sin. Run! When a peak Emperor Realm master of the Scarlet Snow sect roared and burned all his Emperor Realm cultivation, he wanted to escape from the mystic primordial mountain range. He realized that the void of the heaven and earth had been sealed by the Sin Throne. There was no way for them to escape. Boom! The Sin Throne came crashing down. All 30 of the great emperors present were blasted into a bloody mist, along with their spirits. The 5 great sects of the northern region were all destroyed at this moment. After doing all this, Feng Yu started to search for the mysterious crystals in the Emperor Realm Master's hands in the mountain gate that was almost razed to the ground by the Sin Throne. 1 billion mysterious crystals. With the 4 great sects foundation, it should be easy to gather all of them, Feng Yu said. Soon, the number of mysterious crystals in his hands changed rapidly. 300,000 mysterious crystals. 7 million mysterious crystals. 130 million mysterious crystals. 980 million mysterious crystals. When the number of mysterious crystals in Feng Yu's hands reached 980 million, there were no more mysterious crystals in the Emperor Realm corpses. The number of mysterious crystals had already included the number of mysterious crystals in Feng Yu's hands. I still need 20 million mysterious crystals. It seems that I really have to destroy the 4 great sects of the northern region completely. Feng Yu shifted his gaze and soon fixed it on the 4 great sects heavens and earths of the Hanging Sword Mountain, Scarlet Snow Sect, and Resentment Pavilion, which were adjacent to the Netherworld. Boom! The same trick was used again. Feng Yu stretched out his hand and summoned the Sin Throne. The Sin Throne, which was 10,000 feet tall, crashed into the 4 great sects heavens and earth. With a loud bang, countless disciples and elders in the 4 great sects heavens and earths, regardless of their cultivation, as long as no one had reached the Emperor Realm, all of them were blown into a bloody mist at this moment. At this moment, Feng Yu didn't even need to take the initiative to take action. He only needed to stretch out his hand and mysterious crystals shuttled through the void and gathered in the system space. In an instant, he had finally collected 1 billion mysterious crystals. Exchange for cultivation. Let's exchange for Emperor Realm cultivation. Feng Yu's eyes were like lightning as he quickly opened the system store. In an instant, 1 billion mysterious crystals were emptied in an instant and surges of cultivation power rose rapidly. Peak Emperor Realm. Emperor Realm. Peak Emperor Realm. After stepping into the Emperor Realm, Feng Yu still didn't stop at all. He put the inferior divine crystal that he had opened from the super treasure chest into the system space. Exchange for cultivation. Boom. In the Mystic Yuan mountain range, Feng Yu's cultivation aura soared in an instant, turning into a bright beam of light that shot 90,000 miles into the sky. 7-star Emperor Realm cultivation. 8-star Emperor Realm cultivation. 9-star Great Emperor Realm. After the inferior divine crystal disappeared completely, Feng Yu's cultivation finally rose to the 9-star Great Emperor Realm. Is this the strongest realm below the Martial God Realm, excluding the half-step Martial God Realm? Ah! The last realm of the 3 realms of divine powers, the peak of the Great Emperor Realm. It's really extraordinary. Feng Yu's lips curled into a faint smile. Without using any cultivation power, he directly threw a punch into the void in the distance. In an instant, wherever the fist wind passed, the void shattered. In the end, the violent fist wind bombarded the mountain 100 miles away. At that moment, the 10,000 zhang tall mountain collapsed with a loud bang. It was actually destroyed by the force of Feng Yu's punch. Not bad. If it was in the lower realm, I wouldn't even dare to imagine such strength that's even stronger than a peak martial emperor. Feng Yu smiled with satisfaction. Now that he had stepped into the 9-star Great Emperor Realm, as long as there were no major changes in the human realm, Feng Yu could protect himself. Chapter 1022. After all, in the 9 realms of the mortal realm, the strongest person in the world was only a 9-star great sovereign. If they were a little stronger, they would be at the half-step martial god realm. As for the ordinary martial gods, or even the higher-level martial gods, they were all old monsters who cultivated in seclusion. How could they appear so easily? During normal times, before Feng Yu arrived, in 1,000 years, there might not be many martial god realm ancestors who appeared in the outer world to kill their enemies. Just as Feng Yu was feeling complacent about his cultivation of a 9-star great sovereign, a terrifying aura suddenly rose from the eastern border of the distant Xianfeng domain. This aura was powerful to the extreme. It was only slightly weaker than the aura of a peak first-level divine spirit that erupted when Feng Yu and Man Kuangzuan were fighting. In an instant, feeling the aura of a divine spirit, Feng Yu fell silent. Divine spirit realm? Another divine spirit realm expert. And that direction, if I'm not mistaken, is where Xianjian Valkyrie went previously. Jian clan, Feng Yu's face was extremely ugly, and there was an indescribable coldness in his eyes. He knew who the owner of this aura was. Jian clan, Kanzu Jian Tianhen, who was also Man Kuangzuan, who was killed by him in the netherworld not long ago. What a sinister and cunning thing! It seems that senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie doesn't know much. He only knows that you split the true soul of a divine spirit into 2, but he doesn't know that you have a divine spirit realm body hidden in the Jian clan. Feng Yu said slowly with a serious look in his eyes, and the hair all over his body stood on end. There was an indescribable pressure on him. 9-star great sovereign? Ha! He was still too weak. If he didn't quickly advance to the martial god realm or even the divine spirit realm, then he, Feng Yu, would probably fall at the hands of Wang Zun sooner or later. Wang Zun. He would be a formidable opponent for Feng Yu. In the 9 realms of the human realm, perhaps only Wang Zun dared to attack Feng Yu and had the strength to kill Feng Yu. Looks like I've been overthinking things. Now, with the inheritance of the Kenshin of Gojoseon, the authority of the Godslayer, and the appearance of the 10 great gods, the 9 realms of the human realm is no longer peaceful. It is also no longer the silent era of the martial god. A wave of indescribable emotions surged in Feng Yu's heart, strongly telling Feng Yu that it was time to leave. If he was unable to step foot into the martial god realm in a short period of time, then he would definitely die. At this moment, boom! In the direction of the Jian clan, where the aura of the divine spirit realm rose, a rolling wave of origin energy rippled out and swept across the entire Xianfeng domain. Then, an old but extremely cold voice filled with endless majesty and power resounded in the Xianfeng domain. Feng Yu! You damned ant from the lower realm! I've said it. If you dare to kill me, I will do everything in my power to kill you. I will make you beg for death. The angry roar resounded in the heavens and the earth, venting Wang Zun's anger and ferocious killing intent. Bang! At this moment, Feng Yu's figure turned into a stream of light, carefully concealing his aura, avoiding the origin energy ripples that rushed over, and headed straight out of the Xianyuan mountain range. The origin energy ripples and the voice that swept across the Xianfeng domain were not just man Wang Zun venting his anger, but also a method to search for him. If he was exposed, even if Wang Zun's condition was not good, it would still be easy for him to kill Feng Yu, a 9-star great sovereign. A 9-star great sovereign was indeed very strong. In the human world, he was qualified to challenge the forces of the 12 overlords. The forces of the martial gods were not willing to easily offend a peaked great sovereign who might step foot into the martial god realm. Unfortunately, in front of a divine spirit realm expert like Wang Zun and other gods, a peak great sovereign was not even comparable to a martial god who had the title of demigod. What could a 9-star great sovereign be considered as? He was still the same as a peak great sovereign, an ant. At this moment, With the shocking change in the Xianfeng domain and Wang Xun's resurrection, the third divine spirit realm aura rose. The entire ancient domain's human world was in an uproar. The forces of the 12 overlords could no longer be considered as the overlords of the human world. At this moment they could only crawl and tremble, not daring to be presumptuous. Because there was a god standing tall in the mortal world, crazily displaying his divine might in the Xianfeng domain, venting his strength. In front of such a god, the so-called martial gods could be killed with a flick of a finger. The forces of the overlords and martial gods were actually no different from ordinary small sections. Seal the mountain gate. Escape into the void. If such a god-level conflict does not end, my martial gods faction, the Great Void Hall, will never appear. A long voice floated in the Great Void Palace's Fengyun domain. Then, the Great Void Palace's entire mountain gate rose from the ground and actually escaped into the void door. The other forces of the martial gods, except for the underworld and the Sacred Hall, which were ranked in the top 3 forces of the Jian clan, did not move. We mortal sects do not dare to offend the gods' heavenly might. Our thousand-ghost sacred mountain is the same. We will seal the mountain gate for 300 years. The Shao clan of the ancient clan is the same. We will hide from the world for 70 years. All the disciples of the clan must return to the clan today, otherwise they will be removed from the clan. Ghost Palace, Wild Blade Martial God will seal the sect for 500 years. At this moment, the entire human world and the 9 domains were in an uproar. The voices of the martial gods filled with fear floated in the air one after another. Then there was chaos. All the overlord sects and even the ancient overlord clans frantically called back their disciples. Then they rolled and crawled, following the example. They used their divine abilities, uprooted their mountain gate and escaped into the void, and did not come out. In the human world, the anger of a divine spirit realm expert was enough to bring about a destructive disaster. The death of billions of living beings. Especially at this moment, there was only one divine spirit realm expert in the human world, Wang Xun. In addition, in the mystic primordial mountain range, the 2 divine spirit realm experts who were fighting fiercely had lost all signs of life. Their auras had also disappeared. The martial gods in the 9 realms of the mortal realm felt as if the 2 deities who carried the Tao of divine kings had both died in this battle. Just like that. In the land of the Jian clan, this god's aura that rose up was not only the only human god, but it was also aggressively seeking revenge. How could it not make the many overlord martial gods' forces tremble in fear? Chapter 10:23. Madman! This guy is really a madman. The god world was destroyed and the heaven realm was sealed. I think the current situation in the heaven realm is not much better than the god world. Man Kuangzuan is a madman. Back then, he was very quiet and kept a low profile among the 10 great gods. Why is he so crazy now? Does he want to destroy the mortal world? In the land of the Sacred Hall, Sanguinati and Infernal Deity were extremely shocked and angry. They were in charge of the Sacred Hall. Although they did not retreat into the void like the other 9 overlords, the Sacred Hall was still retreating. However, the Saint Hall was also trying to recall their disciples. They were afraid that any of their disciples would provoke the Jian clan's old ancestor and bring disaster to the Saint Hall. That man Wang Xun, as the 2 great gods of the heaven realm expected, can't hold back anymore? We need to inform the 2 great gods of this matter as soon as possible. In the palace of the netherworld, the figure of a stalwart man shrouded in mist slowly pushed open a secret room and quickly disappeared. If the martial god Xian Tian and the Jian clan's Xian Jian Valkyrie from 100,000 years ago were here, they would definitely recognize him. The man from the underworld was none other than one of the 3 strongest martial gods from the underworld who had ascended to the heaven realm 100,000 years ago. No one knew when this martial god Tianming had secretly returned to the netherworld from the heaven realm and was secretly working for the two great gods of the heaven realm. Even Man Kuangzuan, who had been plotting for 1,000,000 years and dominated almost the entire mortal world, did not notice this. Although this martial god Tianming did not deliberately reveal his aura, it could still be vaguely seen through the means he used. He was also a divine spirit realm expert. The martial god realm was only one step away from the divine spirit realm. Moreover, martial god Tianming had already set foot in the heaven realm 100,000 years ago. Now, it was natural for him to become a divine spirit. Such a divine spirit realm expert from the underworld was not only unknown to Honorable Man Kuang. It could be said that all the supreme gods scattered throughout the human world did not know of his existence. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye in the profound wind domain. Fang Yu hid his aura, hid everywhere, and ran for his life in the profound wind domain. And in this half a month, in the Jian family, Man Kuangzuan, a divine spirit realm expert, was still using all kinds of methods to sweep through the entire profound wind domain, searching for Fang Yu's whereabouts. Unfortunately, he didn't gain anything, and these actions finally allowed Fang Yu to catch a glimpse of some clues. He understood that although this Man Kuangzuan had suppressed Xianjian Valkyrie, who wanted to stifle the awakening of half of his true soul, but at this moment, his condition was definitely not any better. Otherwise, with Man Kuangzuan's hatred for Fang Yu, he would have come to Mystic Origin mountain range immediately to kill Fang Yu. At this moment, after running for half a month, Fang Yu finally got a chance to catch his breath in the profound wind domain. He had a chance to refine the 10 superior divine crystal and break through to the martial god realm. As long as I can step into the martial god realm with my methods, as long as I don't face Man Kuangzuan head-on, it'll be easy for me to escape. As long as I can quickly reach the peak of the martial god realm, my life-saving methods will continue to increase, and my combat strength will reach the divine spirit realm. In the capital of the great Han dynasty, Fang Yu, who was wearing a black cloak, slowly appeared and walked into the city, which was gradually recovering its prosperity. In the profound wind domain, the appearance of a divine spirit did not affect the peace here at all. For the many weak martial Dao living beings in the capital of the great Han dynasty, a divine spirit was not much different from a great saint. They were both existences that martial Dao living beings like ants could only dream of but not reach. If the gods wanted to kill them, they could easily do so. A great saint could also easily do it. There was no difference between the two. All the ant-like creatures in the capital of the great Han dynasty continued to live their lives as usual. Unfortunately, with the arrival of Fang Yu, the peace of the great Han dynasty was destined to be overturned. As he desperately fled, Fang Yu couldn't cultivate at all. This was because doing so would expose his aura and allow Supreme Barbarian King to find him. Thinking about it, during this period of time, Supreme Barbarian Wang had been desperately using his methods in the Xianfeng domain to search for his whereabouts. That was also his plan. It made it impossible for Fang Yu to continue cultivating. Otherwise, with his astonishing growth speed, it was possible for him to quickly reach the divine spirit realm. After all, Fang Yu was a cultivator from the lower realm. He had just arrived in the ancient domain and transformed from a peak martial venerable to a 9-star great sovereign in less than half a year. Moreover, he had become the direct descendant of Kenshin of Gojoseon and controlled more than half of the God Slayer authority. He had stirred up a storm and killed a supreme god like Wang Zun and a supreme god like Shinmyozan one after another. Such a monstrous figure, like Kenshin of Gojoseon and Godslayer, had a strange fate. It was not surprising that Man Kuangzuan treated him with caution. Back then, when I was in the northern part of the profound wind domain, I was chased by a great saint, Yun Feng, a disciple of the Ghost Hall. I was terrified and uneasy like a stray dog. Together with the soul-refining demon emperor and Qi Shao, I hid in the Lingyun world, trying to hide my track. I didn't expect that I would return here today to run for my life. It's just that the target has changed from a great saint to a deity. My cultivation base has also risen from the peak of the Venerable Realm to the current 9-star Great Sovereign Realm. Fate really makes fools of people. Feng Yu sighed. In the profound wind domain, he could only think of a place where he could cultivate in peace and not be detected by Man Kuangzuan. This was the only place. Lingyun World, Martial God Battlefield, ancestral land of the ancient Celestial Palace. In this small space there were a total of 3 small worlds. In the deepest part of the ancestral land of the Celestial Palace, there were the auras left behind by the 2 gods, Hao Yang and Han Yue, to conceal Feng Yu's presence. If he cultivated here, it would be impossible for Man Kuangzuan to detect Feng Yu's aura. I can finally cultivate in peace. When I step into the martial god realm, and a high-grade one at that, I will definitely make Man Kuangzuan pay back the humiliation of hiding. Man Kuangzuan has returned to the profound wind domain as a deity. I wonder how senior brother Xianjian is doing now. If it weren't for his reminder, I'm afraid I would still be in the Mystic Origin mountain range and know nothing about Man Kuangzuan's backup plan. Speaking of Xianjian Valkyrie, Feng Yu's heart was filled with worry. Man Kuangzuan was still alive. In this case, senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie's plan to enter the Jian clan and kill Man Kuangzuan's second spirit in advance seemed to have failed. This also meant that even if senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie did not die in the Jian clan, he was now a prisoner who had been humiliated. Xianjian Valkyrie had treated Feng Yu well, and Feng Yu was not a heartless person. He would find a way to repay this favor. Chapter 10:24. The only thing I can do now is to reach the martial god realm as soon as possible, and I have to reach the high-grade martial god realm. Only then will I be able to turn the tables and compete with Man Kuangzuan. Feng Yu's eyes were sharp. His body was as fast as lightning, and his black robe was as dark as ink. Relying on the authority of the heavenly palace between his eyebrows, he quickly stepped into the Lingyun realm. Jian clan. An illusory spirit with Man Kuangzuan's face could be vaguely seen. It was desperately trying to get into the body of a deity who was sitting cross-legged. Man Kuangzuan's remnant spirit was already halfway there. Part of his spirit had already merged with the deity's body. He could still use his means to mobilize the power of this deity-level body refinement warrior to sweep across the entire Xianfeng domain and intimidate the entire human realm. At the side, there was a man with a metal sword on his back. Chains had pierced through his bones, and he was miserably half-kneeling on the ground. This man's aura had already reached the peak of the martial god realm. If this was not the human realm and not the heavenly realm, this man would have already reached the deity level long ago. This miserable man was Xianjian Valkyrie. When Xianjian Valkyrie learned about Kanzu Jian Tianhen's death in the Xianyuan mountain range, he desperately rushed to the Jian clan. Unexpectedly, he was still one step too late. When Xianjian Valkyrie found the whereabouts of Man Kuangzuan's other remnant spirit, this spirit had already awakened and digested all the memories before his death. Xianjian Valkyrie fought with it. In the end, this spirit found an opportunity to get into the deity's body. This deity's body was the second and last body of a deity-level body refinement warrior that Man Kuangzuan had. Damn it! I still can't find any trace of that little bastard. Could it be that he took advantage of the time when I just woke up to escape from the Xianfeng domain? That can't be. When this old man fell, his spirit was awakened in the Jian clan. How could he be so alert and know that I have a god-level backup plan in the Jian clan? Man Kuangzuan was extremely irritated. If it weren't for Xianjian Valkyrie's sudden return to the Jian clan and forcing him to fight, he wouldn't have been able to refine this godly spirit body refiner's body step by step. Why was he in such a sorry state at this moment? In Man Kuangzuan's prediction, after one of his souls had fallen, the other soul would quickly awaken. Then, he would be able to refine this divine spirit's body and return to the peak of the divine spirit realm on the same day. Then, he could descend upon Xianyuan mountain range and kill Fang Yu while he was still in Xianyuan mountain range with his guard down. Bastard! You traitorous dog! You're clearly carrying this old man's bloodline, yet you're not on my side. Then what's the use of keeping you alive? You heartless bastard! You've really ruined this old man's great plan. This old man was so close to obtaining the godly king's authority, but you've ruined it all by coming here today. Man Kuangzuan roared furiously. He controlled the godly spirit body refiner's body and whipped it towards Xianjian Valkyrie. Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. Xianjian Valkyrie's body flew out. His body was torn apart by the dense chains. It could be said to be miserable to the extreme. Haha! Junior brother Fang Yu is the direct descendant of the Kenshin of Gojoseon. He also has half of the godly king's authority that you've been dreaming of. Even if you kill me, he'll avenge me sooner or later. You old bastard, you're ruthless and heartless. You don't even have the slightest bit of kinship. How dare you speak of me like that? 800,000 years ago, you secretly founded the Jian clan. At that time, the celestial realm had yet to be sealed. You used the entire clan's strength to nurture your two sons and let them cultivate the path of body refinement to become gods. They became two godly spirit body refiners one after another. Haha! Old bastard, I'm right. These two sons of yours are the origin of the two godly spirit body refiners you've refined now. Xianjian Valkyrie sneered coldly as he looked at Man Kuangzuan. This so-called ancestor of his bloodline had no kinship at all, only endless coldness. This was what it meant to be deranged. This was what it meant to be deranged. He could even turn his own sons into part of his scheme. He cruelly refined their consciousness and turned them into empty shells of godly spirit body refiners. Only in this way could Man Kuangzuan easily control a godly spirit body refiner with the bloodline shackles. Even if he died, he could quickly possess the battle strength of a godly spirit. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its cubs. However, this did not exist for Man Kuangzuan. The only use of his sons was to pave the way for him to fight for the authority of the godly king. Speaking of which, I really can't kill you. I heard that you treated Fang Yu well? You even gave the 9 supreme divine crystal to him without hesitation. You really treat him as a brother of the same sect. Haha. In that case, with his character, he will definitely treat you as a brother. If he finds out that you're still alive and imprisoned in the Jian clan, he will definitely do everything he can to save you. Since I can't find any trace of him, why don't I use you as bait to lure him to the Jian clan? Man Kuangzuan suddenly revealed a smile. However, his eyes were still filled with unparalleled malice and ferocious killing intent towards Fang Yu. At this moment, although he had refined the godly spirit body of a body refiner, he had only refined half of it and could not walk outside the Jian clan. However, in the Jian clan, using godly spirit techniques to kill enemies from afar was still a piece of cake. As long as he could lure Fang Yu to the Jian clan, the godly spirit body refiner would attack. Then, Fang Yu's fate would be certain. Old bastard! How can you be so vicious? Using me to lure junior brother Fang to his death? Don't even think about it. If you have the guts, kill me! Hearing Man Kuangzuan's vicious plan, Xianjian Valkyrie's eyes turned red and he roared madly. On top of that, he was controlling the force of the martial god realm to forcibly break through the chains and forbidding auras. He was trying to take the initiative to trigger the aura and get himself killed. Ha ha! I can't let you die. Otherwise, with Fang Yu's shrewdness, how could he be deceived by me? During this period, you can be at ease and be a puppet for a while. After I snatch the godly king's authority from Feng Yu, I'll send you and Feng Yu to hell together." At this moment, Man Kuangzuan laughed maliciously. His spirit controlled the godly spirit body refiner to seal Xianjian Valkyrie's 3 souls and seal his memories again. In the blink of an eye, Xianjian Valkyrie, who was only a step away from the godly spirit realm, was controlled again and turned into the appearance he had when Feng Yu first met him. His eyes were empty, like a wooden sculpture, and his consciousness was extremely low. He stood quietly on the spot and became Man Kuangzuan's puppet servant. Chapter 10:25. In the ancestral land of the Heavenly Palace, Feng Yu was sitting cross-legged, refining the martial god realm's soul core left behind by the previous master of the Heavenly Palace. Together with the 10 superior divine crystal pieces he had obtained from the super treasure chest, Feng Yu was trying to break through to the martial god realm without stopping. As long as he could successfully break through to the martial god realm, Feng Yu would be able to make a great leap with the help of the divine energy contained in the 10 high-grade divine crystals. He would become a high-level martial god expert at least at the 7-star martial god realm. After Feng Yu had become a 9-star martial emperor, the interface of the system store where he could exchange cultivation power no longer appeared. Not only that, the entire store for exchanging cultivation base had also disappeared. At this moment, Feng Yu understood that the system had paved the way for him and built a good foundation for him. His growth in the martial god realm and his attempt to break through to the divine spirit realm would depend on himself. As long as he reached the divine spirit realm, he would be able to merge the 4 god slayer fragments into his deity position. Then, Feng Yu would be able to become a deity throne, the 2nd god slayer. Right now, the only person in the human world who can fight with me for the 3rd god slayer fragment is Supreme Barbarian King. Whether I turn into a dragon with the wind or be crushed into pieces by Wang Zun depends on whether I can break through to the martial god realm. The martial god realm's soul core melted rapidly, and the surging cultivation power turned into Feng Yu's breakthrough power. As for the power of the 10 divine crystal pieces, Feng Yu was refining them. Unfortunately, the divine energy could only be used to break through to the martial god realm. Break for me. Martial god realm. Break for me. In the quiet hall of the ancestral land of the Heavenly Palace, Feng Yu was sitting cross-legged. Powerful auras surged from his body. However, these auras could only reach the half-martial god realm. They were unable to reach the martial god realm. Feng Yu wanted to break through to the martial god realm in one go, but he was still a little short. By relying on time, Feng Yu would first reach the half-step martial god realm. Then, after 10 days to half a month, he would be able to reach the martial god realm. However, if he relied on this method to slowly grind his way into the martial god realm, he would not be able to borrow the power of the 10 divine crystal to become a high-level martial god in one go. To Feng Yu, not being able to reach the advanced martial god realm was no different than not breaking through to the martial god realm. Therefore, it had been 3 days and 3 nights. Feng Yu had attempted to break through to the martial god realm many times, but he continued to do so. He did not attempt to break through to the half-step martial god realm. In this side of the towering palace, true love, the heaven martial gods, the black sacred turtle Xian, the 2 tribes of the remnants of the heavenly palace, and many sacred realm beasts had submitted themselves to the great saints of the heavenly palace. They were currently kneeling outside the palace with their heads touching the ground. They were murmuring softly, praying for Feng Yu. At this moment, their eyes shone with an unprecedented blazing brilliance, and their hearts were excited to the extreme. They knew that once their patriarch broke through to the martial god realm, the curse of the soaring heavens and earth would be broken. By then, Feng Yu would bring them to the peak that the ancient celestial palace had never achieved in the past. Some time later, the palace regained its calm. The door slowly opened. A young man in a black robe with sharp eyes and his hands behind his back slowly walked out. The man was none other than Feng Yu. Feng Yu had stopped breaking through to the martial god realm. His cultivation was still at the 9-star martial monarch realm. He stood in the central palace of the ancestral land of the heavenly palace. He looked at the trial ground from afar and at the cold full moon. At that moment, the heaven martial god's body was filled with the radiance of the martial god realm. He slowly got up and came before Feng Yu. He bowed respectfully. The heaven martial god is willing to die for my lord. I will use my life to become the bright sun in the sky and help my lord break through to the martial god realm. The heaven martial god said slowly with a fanatical expression. Although all of this was maintained by the enslavement card, Feng Yu still couldn't bear to see the burning loyalty of the card. Regardless of the bright sun deity in the ghost hell, the heaven martial god in front of him, who had his own thoughts, was a genuine loyal servant. Feng Yu couldn't bear to see him die just like that. However, the heaven martial god did not give Feng Yu a chance to persuade him to stay. His body trembled violently. Then, he rose into the air and turned into a blazing bright Sunday boom. The ancestral land of the heavenly palace changed. At that moment, the land, which was originally as cold as ice, was about to be frozen under the reflection of the cold moon, began to melt rapidly. The sun and moon were in the sky. Water and fire complemented each other. Above the ancestral land of the heavenly palace, the bright sun and the cold moon competed with each other, emitting an unparalleled martial god realm force. It was the peak martial god realm, the power of an ultimate martial god. Sigh. The foundation that the system has built for me is too strong. An ordinary martial god's soul core is not enough for me to blast open the door to the martial god realm. Only the peak martial god's soul cores created by two ultimate martial gods can help me set foot in the martial god realm. At that moment, Feng Yu rose into the sky and stood in the sky above the ancestral land of the heavenly palace. A terrifying suction force surged from his body. Then, the burning bright sun and the cold moon surged toward Feng Yu at that moment. Feng Yu, who was only a peak martial honorable in the ancestral land of the heavenly palace, was afraid of the martial god Xian Tian's body in the cold moon. He did not dare to get close to it, for fear that he would attract the ultimate god, the cold moon. Now, in Feng Yu's eyes, the so-called god of the cold moon was no different from a fallen god like Shinmyozan. They were all people that could be killed. The heavenly honorable martial gods have been loyal to me and have turned into ultimate martial gods' soul cores. You don't even have a true soul. What right do you have to continue to be presumptuous? Get back here! Feng Yu roared. The Sin throne that was 10,000 feet tall rose from his body. In an instant, an even more terrifying suction force acted on the cold moon. In the light of the cold moon, one could vaguely see the figure of a young woman rapidly turning into a soul core. That body belonged to martial god Xian Tian. Then, in the ancestral land of the heavenly palace, the martial god's soul cores formed by the two ultimate gods, bright sun and cold moon, slowly dissolved into Feng Yu's body. At that moment, Feng Yu's unbreakable martial god realm barrier, which was as stubborn as a mountain, was completely shattered by the two ultimate soul cores. An extremely terrifying aura rose from Feng Yu's body. It was only at the 1-star martial god level, but it was almost comparable to that of an ordinary peak martial god. Chapter 10:26. When an ordinary martial god broke through the realm, he only used an ordinary martial god's soul elixir to cultivate his cultivation bit by bit. But what did Feng Yu use? As soon as he came up, he used the soul elixirs of two supreme martial gods, and these two supreme martial gods were cultivated by supreme gods like Haoyang Hanyue in the past. These two sun-moon soul elixirs made the martial god realm that Fang Yu stepped into no longer an ordinary martial god realm. Congratulations on successfully breaking through the realm, Sect Master. This is the aura of the martial god realm. As soon as he came up, his aura is comparable to a 9-star martial god realm. When his cultivation is completely stabilized and he becomes a high-grade martial god, what will happen? When the Palace Master is born, which martial god realm in the 9 regions of the human world can do anything to our Sect Master? Long live the Palace Master, the supreme martial god, Heaven Slaughter martial god. After 100,000 years, the 4th strongest martial god will definitely be our patriarch. Countless voices began to shout in unison. At this moment, all the living beings in the Heavenly Palace's ancestral land were in an uproar. They shouted Fang Yu's name excitedly. Heaven Slaughter martial god. In 100,000 years, the 4th supreme martial god. After thinking about it carefully, even if Fang Yu became a supreme martial god, he would only be the 5th supreme martial god. In front of Fang Yu, there was still Xianjian Valkyrie. Heaven Slaughter martial god? As soon as he came up, he was crowned as the supreme martial god? Ha! He is worthy of the extraordinary martial god realm that I broke through. In the sky, Fang Yu was not humble at all. The corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile, and his body quickly broke through to the higher level of the martial god realm. At this moment, Fang Yu's cultivation had just stabilized at the 1-star martial god realm. He could be considered to have stabilized the martial god realm. However, if they really fought, even if the Blizzard General was here, Fang Yu would still be able to beat him up. A 1-star martial god realm's aura was comparable to a 9-star martial god. His battle prowess could even beat up a martial god who was not weak. In this world, Fang Yu was probably the only martial god with such a monstrous talent. Of course, Kenshin of Gojoseon and Godslayer were not included. They were all talented geniuses like Fang Yu, thus they were surely extraordinary when they were still in the martial god realm. At this moment, high in the sky, Fang Yu was still trying to break through to a higher grade. The 10 superior divine crystal he had obtained from the transcendent treasure chest were rapidly being refined. Surging god power poured into Fang Yu's martial god foundation. Even the towering Sin throne was greedily devouring the violent divine energy of the divine crystal, and it was undergoing unimaginable transformations. Fang Yu had known for a long time that the throne of Sin was extraordinary. After all, when it had stepped into the great saint realm, it had devoured millions of mysterious crystals, which had become Fang Yu's saint origin. Moreover, when Fang Yu had been a great saint, the previous master of the heavenly palace, who was a martial god realm spirit, could not even leave a scratch on its body with a single punch. Devour! Devour as much as you want. Sin throne, show me how extraordinary you are. If the divine energy of the 10 superior divine crystal is not enough for you to devour, I still have 9 supreme divine crystal. I don't have to worry about not being able to feed you. The Sin throne was 10,000 feet tall. Fang Yu sat quietly at its peak, looking at the Sin throne as if he was looking at a treasure. The Sin throne was madly devouring the divine energy of the 10 superior divine crystal, and Fang Yu's martial god realm cultivation base was continuously rising. Peak 1-star martial god. 3-star martial god realm. Peak 4-star martial god realm. 6-star martial god realm. Boom. At this moment, one of the 10 superior divine crystal in Fang Yu's body finally could not withstand the suction force of Fang Yu and the Sin throne and shattered. The increase of Fang Yu's cultivation base temporarily slowed down, but the suction force of the Sin throne did not stop at all. Instead, it became more and more intense. Regarding this, the interest in Fang Yu's eyes grew stronger, but he did not stop it at all. He would let the Sin throne absorb as much as it could absorb. For Fang Yu, As long as the divine energy of the 10 superior divine crystal could allow him to step into the 7-star martial god realm, he would have the confidence to compete with Wang Xun. Crack! The 2nd divine crystal shattered. Then the 3rd, the 4th, and even the 8th. When there was only one divine crystal left in Feng Yu's body, the Sin throne had finally absorbed enough. The originally dark red throne of Sin was now as dark as ink. Divine energy that resembled the viscous blood of a god shrunk unceasingly until it was only 100 feet in size. At this moment, Feng Yu sat quietly on the Sin throne, which was 10 feet in size, like a real throne. However, the Sin throne had shrunk to 10 feet in size, but the dangerous aura it contained was thousands of times more powerful than when it was 10,000 feet in size. At this moment, the 9th divine crystal and the 10th divine crystal finally ran out of divine energy and shattered one after another. At the same time, on the Sin throne, Feng Yu's martial god realm cultivation base finally stopped rising. It stopped at the 7-star martial god realm. Boom! At this moment, Feng Yu stretched out his palm. It contained a lot of martial god's power. In an instant, wind and clouds surged. In the sky above the royal capital of the Dahan state, a huge heaven and earth the size of 100 Dahan states slowly emerged and merged with the heaven and earth of the ancient region. It was the Lingyun heaven and earth returning to the embrace of the ancient region. After Feng Yu stepped into the martial god realm and refined the soul cores of the 2 supreme martial gods, the so-called curse was easily removed. It's me. Feng Yu. I'm back. At this moment, Feng Yu's voice rumbled endlessly from the ancient celestial palace ruins that had suddenly appeared. It exploded in the sky above the Xianfeng domain like a clap of thunder. Such power was comparable to that of the strongest ancestor of the Jian clan, Man Kuangzuan, who was at the divine spirit realm. Many top experts in the Xianfeng domain, including some peak martial emperors, half-step martial gods, and even some martial gods who were hiding in the Xianfeng domain, were shocked when they heard Feng Yu's voice. How is this possible? I heard that when he offended the deity Kanzu, wasn't he only at the martial emperor realm? How did he become a martial god in the human world after a few months? What a terrifying cultivation speed! No wonder Kanzu, who is at the divine spirit realm, swept across the Xianfeng domain with his divine power in order to find him. He was so crazy that the 9 martial god realm forces were terrified and went into seclusion one after another. Even at this moment, martial gods were still terrifying experts in the 9 regions in the human world. There were very few of them. The number of high-grade martial gods could be counted with 2 hands and 2 feet. He had become a 7-star martial god. Such a terrifying cultivation speed shocked and even terrified all the martial gods. He was simply a peerless genius. Chapter 10:27. In the Jian clan, Wang Xun, who was still refining the body of a divine spirit body refiner, also had the same thought. He felt that Feng Yu's cultivation speed was too terrifying. This shouldn't be. Damn it. He's already a 7-star martial god. Even if this kid carries the inheritance of Godslayer and Kenshin of Gojoseon, he shouldn't be so monstrous. What other secrets does he have? Could this be the special characteristic of a person with a strange fate? With the blessing of fate, it's hard to kill him. Moreover, his cultivation speed is extremely fast. He can be called a genius, a monstrous genius. Wang Xun was so angry that he was about to go crazy. His eyes were filled with ferocious killing intent and extreme anger to hide his fear. In the Jian clan, all the martial god realm ancestors appeared in front of him respectfully at this moment. They bowed their heads to the ground and listened to his orders. Originally, in Wang Xun's opinion, this group of martial god realm juniors of the Jian clan could be of some use. They could be used to hunt down Feng Yu and capture Feng Yu. But who would have thought that Fang Yu would step into the martial god realm so quickly, and it was an extremely high-grade 7-star martial god realm. Just like this, the only high-grade martial god in the Jian clan, the 7-star Scarlet Fire Sword God, who was comparable to an 8-star martial god realm, had died at the hands of Fang Yu. What made Wang Xun feel extremely embarrassed was that their Jian clan didn't have a martial god realm expert who could fight against Fang Yu. Damn it! Damn it! Why can this kid grow so fast? If this continues, I'm afraid this kid will advance to the divine spirit realm. The Supreme Barbarian Lord had completely lost his composure. He was extremely angry, and under his extreme anger, there was also unparalleled fear. A few months ago, Fang Yu, who he despised to the extreme, had now become an existence whose growth speed made him tremble in fear. We can't drag this on any longer. Torture Xianjian Valkyrie, then nail him to death in front of the Jian clan's gate. Then, spread the news to the entire Xianfeng domain and lure Fang Yu here. We can't afford to waste any time. Every day that Fang Yu did not come, he would use the god-level relic, Lifeless Saber, to chop off Xianjian Valkyrie's palms, feet, arms, thighs, and even his head. We must force Fang Yu to come to the Jian clan. Supreme Barbarian Wang Wang roared crazily. The martial gods of the Jian clan looked at their ancestor in awe. When they heard that the Lifeless Saber, a god-level relic that was specially prepared for torture, they immediately felt an indescribable pressure in their hearts. Lifeless Saber. In the past, the ancient celestial palace was one of the 7 god-level relics. By chance, it was taken out from the ancient celestial palace by a martial god and then passed into the hands of the Jian clan. Even though the Jian clan had over a dozen martial god realm experts, not a single one of them was able to control the saber. The lifeless saber slashed down, affecting the body and even the soul. Once it was chopped off, the part that was damaged would be damaged for life. Even if they used the god-level technique or took the ancient divine elixir, it would be of no help at all. They could not regrow the part that was chopped off. Cutting off Xianjian Valkyrie's limbs and head with each slash, the ancestor was serious this time. It was as if he was afraid that Fang Yu would not come. The slaughter god authority is mine. No one can take it away from me. I should have been a god king 2 million years ago. It's all the fault of that Kenshin of Gojoseon. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have to fight so hard for the so-called slaughter god authority. Supreme Barbarian King had a ferocious look on his face. At this moment, the martial gods of the Jian clan received the order and took out the lifeless saber that was still evil after the blood sacrifice from the clan's treasury. And Xianjian Valkyrie, whose eyes were empty like a puppet. In the Jian clan, there was no martial god who dared to go against the ancestors' will. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. Under Man Kuangxuan's order, the entire Jian clan was busy preparing the plan to lure Fang Yu into the Wangjin clan. Little did they know. At this moment, Fang Yu's original body was in the Jian clan and he heard Man Kuangxuan's plan from afar. Fang Yu was in the Jian clan, and at that moment, he was extremely close to the Supreme Barbarian King. However, Wang Xun, the Divine Spirit, did not notice it at all. After that battle in the Nether Purgatory, Supreme Barbarian King still hadn't completely refined the body of that God Spirit body refiner. What a vicious mind! Man Wang Xun! I'll kill you! Fang Yu's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at the secret room where Wang Xun was standing. Before he killed Wang Xun, he had to solve 2 things in the Jian clan. First, he had to rescue senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie. After all, the Xianjian martial god had helped him, which was why he was in such a dangerous situation. Another thing was that he had to figure out where the 3rd fragment of the god-slaying sword was hidden in the hands of barbarian Wang Wang of the Jian clan. If he had 2 fragments of the god-killing sword, he should be able to sense the location of the third fragment from afar. However, Fang Yu did not sense anything. He had already walked a large circle around the Jian clan, and he had almost exposed his track. Damn it! Wang Zun must have used some method to hide the aura of the third fragment of the god-killing sword. If I can't figure this out, I'm afraid that even if I kill him, I won't be able to find the third fragment of the god-killing sword. After stepping into the 7-star martial god realm, Fang Yu only needed to take a few more steps to enter the divine spirit realm. Then, he would have the qualifications to inherit the god-killing authority and become the second godslayer. If he could not gather all 4 fragments of the god-killing sword, then what was the point of Fang Yu stepping into the divine spirit realm? In the current era, the divine world had fallen and the heaven realm was sealed. Although the 9 regions of the human realm were extremely vast, even the divine spirit realm could not be born. Without the ability to inherit the divine king's authority, Fang Yu wanted to cultivate in the divine spirit realm in the 9 regions of the human realm, which was like an isolated island. It was impossible for him to advance to the divine monarch realm or even the ultimate god realm. If one could cultivate to the divine monarch realm or even the ultimate god realm in the human realm, how could the supreme gods who were scattered in the 9 regions of the human realm still be in the martial god realm? The strongest was Wang Zun. He relied on the arrangements that were left behind 700,000 to 800,000 years ago before the heaven realm was sealed. That was why he had 2 divine spirit realm body refiners' bodies that could allow him to display the power of the divine spirit realm and become a divine spirit realm expert in the human realm. Chapter 10:28. I'll destroy the lifeless saber first, then rescue my senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie. Otherwise, I won't have the chance to save him when the war starts. Fang Yu's figure was like lightning as he shuttled through the Jian clan. None of the clansmen were able to discover his existence. Man Wang Zun, who was qualified to discover Fang Yu's whereabouts, was still refining the body of the divine spirit realm body refiner. He didn't pay any attention to the Jian clan. Even if the supreme barbarian lord racked his brains, he would never have imagined that Fang Yu would be so audacious as to sneak into the Jian clan right under his nose. In his expectation, Fang Yu had just broken the heavenly palace's curse and allowed the ancient heavenly palace to return to the ancient domain. Perhaps Fang Yu was still afraid of his divine spirit realm cultivation and was hesitating at the heavenly palace's mountain gate, trying to delay the arrival of the war. However, it just so happened that Supreme Barbarian King also wanted the battle to come a little later so that he would have enough time to prepare. To be honest, Wang Zun wasn't afraid of Fang Yu, who was a 7-star martial god. After all, no matter how strong Fang Yu was, he couldn't be stronger than him. The Supreme Barbarian King was afraid that Fang Yu would continue to grow, or that he would be able to use the netherworld purgatory and that terrifying god-slaying sword that contained the supreme Tao of slaughter. If that was the case, therefore, he had to make some preparations and find some helpers to support him in the battle. Of course, this helper couldn't be stronger than Wang Zun. Otherwise, if he killed Fang Yu, wouldn't he have another opponent who could compete with him for the slaughter god authority? Among the 10 supreme gods, Shinmyozan has fallen, the good and evil gods have gone missing, Yi Wangzuan is also dead. The sun god has been wandering in the ghost hell all year round, unable to escape, infernal deity and sanguinati have been scared out of their wits. The great malevolent celestial was never on the same side as me back in the day. Not to mention the fact that his soul fragments are scattered across the lower realms. Even if his true soul were here, I wouldn't be able to convince him to help me. If that's the case, I can only invite the true soul of the Han Yu god, who was sealed in the Ao Long martial city by me. Thinking of this, Barbarian Lord revealed a pensive expression. He flicked his finger, and a surge of divine power turned into a letter that landed in the hands of God Han Yu from thousands of miles away. At this moment, the entire proud dragon martial city was covered in ice. Outside of the ice, there was a dazzling golden heaven-reaching formation. At this moment, in the kingdom of ice, the Han Yu god opened her eyes. The letter appeared in front of her. She curled her lips in disdain. "You want me to help you?" "Man Wang Zun, you have quite the face. You can't even take care of yourself, yet you still have the face to ask me to help you. In the Ao Long martial city, you plotted against me and sealed me here. You want me to help you? Don't even think about it, unless you give me the third shard of the god-killing sword." The Han Yu god's true soul laughed coldly. She flicked her finger and turned the letter into ashes. Moreover, she deliberately made things difficult for Wang Zun. She asked for the third shard of the god-killing sword. As for the promise she made to the bright sun god in the ghost hell about avenging Fang Yu? Sorry. The Han Yu god's true soul had long forgotten about it. Back in the god world, the sun god and the moon god were old enemies. Their enmity ran deep. It could be traced back to the sun god and the moon god. If it was a small matter, the Han Yu god might have casually gotten rid of Fang Yu. However, not long ago, the aura of Godslayer's terrifying sword still remained in the Han Yu god's mind. The god's true soul, the god's spirit realm body, and Kenshin of Gojoseon's god-killing sword had all died once in front of Fang Yu. Man Quangzuan was so strong, but he still ended up like this. Unless the Han Yu god was tired of living, she wouldn't get involved in this mess. Impudent. Too impudent. This cold moon god is only my prisoner. I sealed her in Ao Long Wu City, and she dares to reject me like this. Unforgivable, Cold Moon God said with a smile. When Wang Zun heard the Han Yu god's refusal, and even wanted to get the third shard of the god-killing sword, he flew into a rage. Soon, as if he had thought of something, Supreme Barbarian King forcibly performed a secret technique and fused his entire divine soul into the body of the divine spirit body refiner. How could I forget about that thing? That's an extreme supreme treasure. It's a terrifying supreme treasure that can only be born in the lower realm. It's a completely different type of treasure from the god realm. If I can get my hands on that dark nether bell and activate it with my divine spirit realm cultivation base, killing Fang Yu would be a piece of cake. Even if he manages to reach the divine spirit realm, I'll still be able to kill him before he can gather the supreme Tao of slaughter and use the god's slaughtering sword. Wang Zun's eyes were full of splendor. He forcefully entered the body of the divine spirit body refiner and walked towards the depths of the Jian clan. There was a forbidden area in the Jian clan. It was the place where the martial god realm ancestors cultivated in seclusion. Next to the stone room on the mountain peak where they cultivated in seclusion was a bottomless abyss that was shrouded in pitch-black fog all year round. On the walls of the invincible abyss, there were many cells that locked up Wang Zun's prisoners. In one of the cells, there was a group of ants that snuck into the three ancient realms from the lower realm. The strongest experts were just a group of world suppression martial emperors. In the eyes of man Wang Zun, who was a divine spirit realm existence, they were no different from ants. In the eyes of the barbarian king, the only ones who were not ants were those who were also among the 10 supreme gods. There was also Fang Yu, who was an extremely troublesome opponent. In the depths of the Jian clan, at the edge of the abyss, Wang Zun jumped down. He easily stepped in front of a cell and entered it. After a while, a young man in a black robe slowly walked towards the place where Wang Zun was standing. This person was Fang Yu. Along the way, he did not find where martial god Xianjian was imprisoned. Instead, he met Supreme Barbarian Wang again. He followed Supreme Barbarian Wang Wang in confusion, and then came here. What is this place? Fang Yu frowned. Subconsciously, he wanted to leave. After all, it wasn't the best time to shed all pretense of cordiality and fight. However, right at this moment, on the system panel, the slaughter treasure chest page automatically jumped out. A dazzling golden treasure chest appeared in front of Fang Yu. It was in this abyss. Not only that, on the map coordinates of this side of the abyss, a new black treasure chest surrounded by a viscous blood-like substance was born. What kind of treasure chest is this? Fang Yu's pupils shrank. Chapter 1029. The Massacre Treasure Chest map has been refreshed. A special Extreme Massacre Treasure Chest has been discovered. After capturing it, one can obtain one of the Extreme Rules of Order fragments to complete the missing Extreme Rules of Order in the Throne of Evil, Buzz. A special Extreme Treasure Chest. After capturing it, one can obtain one of the Extreme Rules of Order fragments to complete the missing Extreme Rules of Order in the Throne of Evil? Fang Yu, who had wanted to leave, suddenly stopped in his tracks as his eyes flickered vigorously. Looking at the deep abyss and the two treasure chests on the map, Fang Yu recalled many things. Previously, before he had set foot in Ao Long Martial City, Fang Yu had sensed that Martial Emperor Qi Zhao's original body was left in the ancient region's human world. Then, he must have been captured by the Jian clan's experts. This golden treasure chest was the last treasure chest that had been lost, and Fang Yu had not taken it back. However, the newly born extreme grade treasure chest was not one of them. As for this new extreme treasure chest, and the so-called Extreme Rules of Order that could complete the missing Extreme Rules of Order in the Throne of Evil, Fang Yu was reminded of the time when he had fought with the members of the Nine Supremes in his original world. The strange little golden seed in Xian Ming Revered's hand was almost the same as the power of the Throne of Evil, which specialized in killing and suppressing. At that time, Fang Yu had paid special attention to it. If it were not for the fact that there were many martial sages and world guardians present, Fang Yu would have snatched the strange ancient bell from Xian Ming Revered's hand. Could it be that Xian Ming Revered is also in the deep abyss? Martial Emperor Qi Zhao's golden treasure chest is also here. Ha ha! Things like this are really interesting. It seems that I was right. When all the cultivators from the lower realm descend to the ancient domain's 3 realms, they all descend to the Xianfeng domain. It seems that other than me, Qi Shao, and the soul-refining demon emperor, the rest of them were captured by the Jian clan before they had matured for long. Otherwise, with the cultivation attainments of the world suppression martial emperor, it would be impossible for them to not even make a sound in this northern region of the Xianfeng domain. At this moment, as he stood at the edge of the abyss and looked at the black fog that was so thick that it seemed impossible to disperse, Fang Yu's thoughts raced. As for the golden treasure chest on Martial Emperor Qi Shao and the extreme grade treasure chest on Xian Ming Venerable, Fang Yu would take them back. Even if the two of them grew stronger in the ancient region, they would only be martial emperors at most. They were nothing compared to Fang Yu, who was a high-grade martial god. TSK. Back then, before the entrance to the ancient region, as one of the members of the Nine Supremes, I could only be reduced to a chess piece when faced with these so-called martial emperors. I tried my best to fight for a chance of survival, but now, these so-called experts in my eyes have become ants that I can kill with a wave of my hand, unworthy of being chess pieces. Fang Yu laughed involuntarily. At this moment, at the bottom of the abyss, there was a strange movement, and Fang Yu could vaguely hear the cold words of the barbarian king. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Since the two of you aren't willing to cooperate and give me the extreme grade artifact, I'll have to give you a good beating. Then, a shrill cry came from the abyss. Among them, what surprised Fang Yu was that martial Emperor Lin seemed to be screaming miserably. Interesting. This is very interesting. Fang Yu made a mental note of the abyss and left. Since Wang Xun wanted to torture Xian Ming Venerable and martial Emperor Lin, he would let them suffer for a while. In the past, the two of them had set Fang Yu up. One of them wanted to trample on Fang Yu and the other members of the 9 Supremes to get a chance to live. The other was even more despicable. He wanted to possess Fang Yu and occupy Fang Yu's body to descend to the Ancients' realm. In the blink of an eye, things have changed. The experts and old friends of the past are not even qualified to be called ants in my eyes. Fang Yu left and soon followed the aura of a martial god of the Jian clan to the treasury of the Jian clan. At the center of the treasure vault, there was a sinister saber surrounded by a thick, pitch-black aura. 3 big words were carved on it in a crooked manner, as if it was the gaze of a ghost from hell. Lifeless saber. Fang Yu read it out slowly. The lifeless saber was taken from the world of obsession of the god-slaying sword by the ancient celestial palace. It was ranked second among the 7 god-level relics. It could be said that the ranking of this sinister saber was only below the extremely mystical ancient treasure, the Crystal of Destiny. Compared to the Crystal of Destiny, although the lifeless saber was extremely ferocious and could corrode one's mind with its evil qi, it was more like an obedient baby. After all, none of the previous owners of the lifeless saber had ever ended up as miserable as the cultivators who had used the Crystal of Fate. The users of the Crystal of Destiny had never had a good ending. As for the lifeless saber, as long as it did not suffer any backlash, it was an extremely handy and terrifying divine weapon with great lethality. It was enough to make one's opponent tremble in fear. The injuries caused by the lifeless saber could not be healed at all. Severed limbs could not be regrown. As long as one's head was chopped off, even if one's soul was at the 3rd level of the divine spirit realm, one would still be cut in half. Lifeless saber. The weapon used by the first divine king of the Ancients' realm, the extremely ferocious lifeless divine king when he was young. The weapon of the divine king. I didn't expect the most powerful god-level relic of the ancient celestial palace to be in the hands of the Jian clan. Fang Yu's eyes flickered. In the Ancients' realm, there were only 2 divine king weapons left behind by the 3 great divine kings. One was the lifeless saber in front of him, and the other was the God-Slayer sword. The God-Slayer sword was slightly more special. This was because God-Slayer's methods were shocking. He was able to materialize the divine king's authority and put it into the God-Slayer sword in his hand. The person who obtained the God-Slayer sword would obtain everything that belonged to God-Slayer and become the 4th divine king of the Ancients' realm, which was also the 2nd God-Slayer. As soon as he arrived, he would be able to inherit God-Slayer's extremely powerful Tao, the supreme Tao of slaughter. Who is it? Get out here! Little rascal, how dare you act so presumptuously in the Jian clan's territory just because you are a martial god? Don't you know that our old ancestor is the only divine spirit in the human world? Get out here and accept your death. In the treasury of the Jian clan, the martial god standing in front of the lifeless saber had a ferocious killing intent in his eyes. After the blood sacrifice, the martial god took out the evil divine weapon and slashed at Fang Yu violently. Chapter 1030. After Fang Yu muttered the name of the lifeless saber, the 4-star martial god from the Jian clan noticed Fang Yu's presence. He did not make a sound and pretended that he had not seen Fang Yu. He continued to move forward. When he could take out the lifeless saber to attack Fang Yu, he suddenly attacked and slashed at Fang Yu with killing intent. Moreover, he was using the extremely vicious lifeless saber. If the martial god from the Jian clan was caught off guard and hit him, even Fong Yu would not feel good. "How dare you! How dare you talk about hurting me in front of me?" Fortunately, Fong Yu reacted quickly. A sharp cold light shot out from his eyes, and he punched the martial god in the chest first. The martial god did not stop him at all. He could see that Fong Yu was also a martial god. At that moment, he wanted to exchange his injury for Fong Yu's life. Fong Yu was a foreign martial god. If he were to land a punch on his body, he would at most be severely injured. However, the lifeless saber could take his life. Haha. Exchange my injury for your life. It's worth it. The martial god realm progenitor let out a hideous grin. However, in the next moment, he could not laugh anymore. This was because Fong Yu's fist had pierced through his chest, causing blood to spurt out. That one punch had extinguished all of his life force. At that very moment, the lifeless saber was still some distance away from Fong Yu's body. If he wanted to exchange his injury for Fong Yu's life, he would have to see if he was strong enough. Everyone knew how strong Fong Yu was now. He was even stronger than the Heaven Highness martial god, the Xiantian martial god, and the others. Although he had not tried it, Fong Yu was a 7-star martial god. The combat strength that he could unleash was definitely at the divine spirit realm. Otherwise, how could Fong Yu have the confidence to come to the Jian clan? Who exactly are you? The martial god realm ancestor of the Jian clan was in disbelief when he felt the punch of an ultimate martial god. Could the guy in front of him be one of the 3 martial gods from 100,000 years ago? Otherwise, how could he be so powerful? Fong Yu. Fong Yu opened his mouth and slowly revealed his name. In an instant, the eyes of the martial god realm ancestor of the Jian clan suddenly widened. His eyes were filled with shock. He wanted to use the last of his strength to shout out loud to remind the members of the Jian clan and the ancestor that this great enemy of his had already infiltrated the Jian clan. Unfortunately, he could not shout. Bang! Blood exploded. The martial god realm progenitor was sent to his death by Fong Yu. His head and soul were smashed into powder by the punch. In a battle of overwhelming strength, he had to fight. He did not have the majestic aura that he had when he fought with Wang Xun. Fong Yu could slaughter these martial gods as easily as chopping vegetables. He would not give them the slightest chance to make a move. Although they were both martial gods, Fong Yu had long surpassed another level. He was even vaguely above the martial god realm. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The life slip of the 10th elder in the clan's treasury is broken. The 10th elder in the martial god realm went to the clan's treasury to take the lifeless saber. Both his life slip and soul slip are broken. An enemy has invaded the Jian clan. Quickly inform the martial ancestor. All the martial god realm martial gods attack together. Don't be alone. The enemy must be powerful to be able to kill a martial god in an instant. Countless shouts resounded in the Jian clan's territory. Then, numerous martial god realm ancestors swiftly gathered together as if they were facing a great enemy. At this moment, a murderous atmosphere engulfed the entire Jian clan. One after another, extraordinary, god-level ancient formations rose one after another and sealed off the entire Jian clan to ensure that the enemy who killed the Jian clan's martial god realm expert would not be able to escape. Especially in the Jian clan's treasury. As soon as the shouts sounded outside, a god-level formation sealed off the place. If it were other 7-star martial gods, they would be like a turtle in a jar facing such a god-level formation. They would not be able to escape. Unfortunately, the 7-star martial god realm expert who was trapped in the Jian clan's treasure vault was Fong Yu. He was the Fong Yu who had come to wrestle with revered barbarian Wang of the divine spirit realm. This puny array was not enough to trap Fong Yu. Haha. You've been exposed just like that? How boring. I thought I could continue to hide for a while. If I can't save senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie first, I can only kill all the martial gods in the Jian clan as fast as I can and then fight with Wang Xun. I won't give the Jian clan any chance to threaten me with senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie. At this moment, Fang Yu's eyes shone with a fierce, cold light. He was finally going to be serious. Ever since he stepped into the 7-star martial god realm, Fang Yu had not used his full strength and displayed his peak combat strength. Now, such a situation was just right. Boom! The dazzling god-level formation that covered the Jian clan's treasury instantly shattered under Fang Yu's brutal charge like a piece of paper. At this moment, it was too late for the Jian clan's martial gods who had just gathered here to escape. At this moment, they had already recognized the enemy. It was Fang Yu who even the ancestor was afraid of. In the entire Jian clan, perhaps only the old ancestor was qualified to fight with such an existence. Oh no! Oh my God! The enemy is not a martial god, but Fang Yu, a peerless demon. Run! In our Jian clan, only the old ancestor is qualified to fight him. We're just ants. We'll definitely lose if we fight him, and we'll definitely die if we lose. Quick, men! Go and tell the ancestor that Fang Yu, a peerless demon, has come to kill us. He wants to kill all the Jian clan's bloodline. Roars kept ringing out. At this moment, the martial gods of the Jian clan who possessed monstrous might and were insufferably powerful turned around and fled like birds that were startled by the twang of a bow. None of them dared to stay and fight with Fang Yu. They might not know about the other martial gods, but since Fang Yu dared to barge into the Jian clan, his cultivation and combat strength should be at least at the martial god realm. They might even believe that Fang Yu's combat strength was at the half-deity realm. It could be said that the martial gods were as fast as they had been when they had arrived. At this moment, they were running away as fast as they had been. Did I say you could leave? All of you stay here. Die for me. Fang Yu roared in a deep voice. At this moment, the incomparably solid Sin throne that was 10 feet tall appeared behind his body. Chapter 1031. The Sin throne, which was less than 30 meters tall, expanded in the wind. It stood between heaven and earth in an instant and tore the god-level formation that enveloped the Jian clan into pieces. The Sin throne was 100,000 meters tall. At this moment, it soared into the sky and fiercely suppressed the 6 or 7 martial gods and the Jian clan. No! Don't kill us! Fang Yu! How can the battle between you and our ancestor affect us ordinary martial gods? You're bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Why didn't I see you chasing after the ancestors of our Jian clan? The martial gods of the Jian clan were furious. Some of them begged in fear and some cursed angrily. They all looked different. Fang Yu ignored the curses of the martial god realm ancestors. Previously, when he was exposed in the proud dragon martial city, these martial gods, including the Scarlet Fire Sword God, were ordered by their ancestor to capture him and bring him back to the Jian clan, regardless of life or death. At that time, Fang Yu's cultivation had only just stepped into the martial monarch realm. Why didn't Fang Yu scold them for bullying the weak and fearing the strong when facing such a group of vicious martial gods? The fist was the rule. The strong and the weak were the laws. Regarding this point, Fang Yu had known it for a long time. The resistance of the weak was just a dog's bark. Those who could control their own fate were all experts without exception. When Fang Yu's whereabouts were exposed in Ao Long Martial City, the martial gods who came to search for him were undoubtedly experts. Now, at this moment, a 7-star martial god was a true expert compared to Fang Yu, who was a sword god realm expert. In the ancient domain, there was no need for a reason for experts to kill Ant. At this moment, in the abyss, Man Quangzuan, who sensed Fang Yu's aura, finally arrived. He looked at the terrifying Sin throne that was 100,000 meters tall and was stunned. Man Kwangzuan's expression was a little stiff. They never thought that the Sin throne, which was so weak and not threatening a few months ago, could transform to such a terrifying level. The throne, which was 100,000 meters tall, was completely black, and was surrounded by a thick bloody aura like blood. It gave him an indescribable pressure. After all, who was he? He was Man Kwangzuan, the only divine spirit realm existence in the human world. It was actually able to make a divine spirit realm expert feel such an oppressive feeling. From this, one could well imagine how strong the suppressive power of this throne was. Under the suppression of the Sin throne, all the living beings of the Jian clan, including the 6 to 7 martial god realm ancestors, would die here. Stop. Fang Yu, stop. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Man Kwangzuan roared ferociously. It was too late to stop him. He could only keep threatening, hoping that he could intimidate Fang Yu with his divine spirit realm cultivation. However, Man Kwangzuan's idea was a little whimsical. Since Fang Yu had personally rushed to the Jian clan's territory, how could he still be afraid of his divine spirit realm cultivation? It was just a life and death struggle, a life and death struggle. Why would Fang Yu be afraid? From the lower realm all the way to the ancient region's 3 realms, Fang Yu had been fighting with his life on the line all the way. Now, one more time wouldn't make a difference. Boom. Blood splattered everywhere. Beneath the million-feet Sin throne, the entire Jian clan's land of 10,000 miles was razed to the ground. The martial god realm progenitors were the first to suffer the brunt of the attack. Not many of them managed to leave behind a complete corpse. Boy, you're courting death. You're courting death. Man Kwangzuan was furious. He wasn't angry because the Jian clan's people were all dead. Instead, he was angry because Fang Yu ignored his threat and killed the Jian clan's people. This made Supremacy Savage feel that he had been humiliated. Ant from the lower realm, you should stay in the lower realm. Why did you come to the ancient region's 3 realms to compete with me for the Divine King's authority? I'll send you to your death. Man Kwangzuan roared crazily. At this moment, his clothes continued to tear apart, revealing his incredibly strong body as a divine spirit body refiner. Then, dazzling runes began to shine on his body. Boom! Man Kwangzuan's body grew in the wind and continued to grow. Then, he reached a height of 100,000 feet. He was so tall that he could support the heavens. 8 Desolation Punch! Man Kwangzuan roared angrily. Then, he threw out a punch. The space where his fist passed was almost shattered into pieces. The fist's mighty power swept towards Fang Yu. This divine spirit body refinement warrior's body hadn't been completely refined. His soul and body hadn't merged yet. This also caused Man Kwangzuan to be unable to use his body as a sword. It was like when he was in the netherworld, he could use the terrifying Divine King Destroyer sword a second time. If Man Kwangzuan could still use the terrifying Divine King Destroyer sword with his divine spirit realm cultivation, Fang Yu wouldn't have any chance of winning. He could only choose to run away quickly or stay here and wait for his death. Divine King Destroyer sword. This was also what Fang Yu was worried about. At this moment, when he saw Wang Zun comically using the body refinement warrior's fist technique and attacking him, Fang Yu finally felt relieved. As long as it wasn't a terrifying killing move like the Divine King Destroyer sword, with Man Kwangzuan's other fighting skills, even if his cultivation was at the Divine Spirit realm, he would still be able to deal with it. Without the Divine King Destroyer sword. You're nothing in my eyes, Fang Yu said coldly. Then, he held the Divine King divine weapon, lifeless saber, and slashed towards Man Kwangzuan. Not only that, the 1,000,000-foot-tall Sin throne also descended from the sky and viciously crushed down on Supremacy Overlord's body. With the two added together, Fang Yu's fighting strength rose again. Just as he attacked, Fang Yu had used almost all of his strength. A little martial god dares to attack a real divine spirit realm expert? Kid, today I'll let you know what the 3 realms of divine spirit realm are. The martial god realm is just a demigod, Man Kuangzuan said coldly. Boom. At this moment, his fist was wrapped in incomparable power as it ruthlessly hit the lifeless saber and Fang Yu's Sin throne. A mocking smile appeared on Supremacy Barbaric's face. It was as if he could see Fang Yu bleeding from his 7 orifices in the next moment. He didn't have long to live. Haha. No matter how strong the martial god realm is, he's just a demigod. He can't be compared to a divine spirit realm expert like me. This is also why I've planned for so many years and didn't hesitate to kill my 2 sons to leave the bodies of 2 divine spirit realm body refinement warriors for emergencies. In the human world, I, Man Kuangzuan, am the only divine spirit realm expert. Now, it's synonymous with invincibility. Chapter 1032. Supreme Barbarian Wang Wang was still laughing complacently. However, when Fang Yu looked at the gigantic palm and that 100,000 feet tall body that was slamming towards him, his eyes were filled with disappointment. Weak. He was simply too weak. In the battle of life and death, the feeling that Man Wang Zun gave Fang Yu was extremely unbearable. It was nowhere close to the feeling he had when he was in the netherworld. Man Wang Zun, I regard you as a great enemy. Is this how you treat me? If that's the case, aren't you looking down on me too much? Fang Yu was infuriated. The battle for the power of the godly slayers. In the ancestral land of the Heaven Palace, Fang Yu was desperately trying to improve his cultivation. He was extremely wary of Man Wang Zun, treating him as a great enemy. In order to step into the martial god realm and become a high-grade martial god as soon as possible, Fang Yu did not hesitate to watch his loyal celestial martial god turn into the bright sun and the black heaven martial god turn into the soul core of a supreme martial god. However, he soon realized that Man Kuangzuan was not worthy of his efforts. The sacrifice of a heaven martial god was not worth it. Man Wang Zun! You're not worthy to be my opponent. Fang Yu roared furiously. At that instant, the force of the martial god burst out from his body. The lifeless saber in his hand unleashed a strong murderous aura. The 100,000 feet tall throne of Sin had also revealed its ferocious and terrifying side. Bang! Following this, the 3 figures collided with one another. Under Wang Zun's godly figure, Fang Yu with the lifeless saber was the first to be knocked out. He was sent flying with a single punch. On the other hand, the 100,000 zhang tall throne of Sin unleashed a formidable aura and suppressed Wang Zun's figure like a mountain. Even with Wang Zun's strength, he could not shake the throne of Sin in the slightest. His spine kept bending and he was about to fall to his knees. Impossible! What the hell is this? In the lower realm, there can only be one extreme-grade ultimate treasure. Could it be that this mystical throne is also an extreme cardinal treasure? How is this possible? Didn't your world already give birth to a supreme treasure, the Dark Abyss Bell? What's going on with this thing? Man Kuangzuan ignored Fang Yu, who was eliminated. His 100,000 godly figures shone brightly, displaying extraordinary godly power. He wanted to move the 100,000 zhang tall throne away. What a pity! Under the Sin throne, the strange killing power was like a maggot that clung to his bones, making it impossible for him to break free. The suppression power of a 1,000,000 feet throne was extremely terrifying. It could even suppress the divine power of a deity who wielded the laws. After the throne of Sin, it became so powerful. At this moment, Fang Yu's face was full of astonishment. Fang Yu had noticed the uniqueness of the throne of Sin a long time ago. However, He did not expect that after stepping into the martial god realm, the throne of sin would become so special. Even a divine spirit realm expert would not be able to do anything to it. That's right. This is not an ordinary supreme treasure, but a supreme treasure of killing. Only one supreme treasure of killing can be born from 100,000 supreme treasures in the lower realm. Man Kuangzuan felt the power of the throne of sin, and his face was full of fear. When he looked at Feng Yu again, his eyes were full of jealousy and hatred. In the ancient realm, there were a total of 3 people with strange fate, 2 divine kings, and Feng Yu in front of him. However, in Man Kuangzuan's opinion, Feng Yu's luck and opportunities were far superior to the other 2 divine kings with strange fate. First, he was the successor of the divine slayer. Then, he became a direct descendant of the Kenshin of Gojoseon. Finally, he had a supreme treasure of killing that even a divine king did not have. One had to know. Once such a supreme treasure of killing was born, even a divine king would be extremely envious and would not hesitate to fight for it with his life. In the ancient realm, there was a legend recorded in ancient books. 30 million years ago, during the era of the lifeless divine king, outside the ancient realm, a divine king had fallen and left behind a supreme treasure of killing that had the potential to transform into a supreme treasure of killing. Then, outside the door of heaven and earth, numerous supreme gods and even godly monarchs descended into the outer space and engaged in a frenzied battle for the ultimate supreme treasure. As for that supreme treasure, it only had the potential to transform into a supreme treasure of killing, but it had already attracted dozens of divine kings to descend. A true supreme treasure of killing had appeared in the ancient realm today, right in front of Man Kuangzuan's eyes. A supreme treasure would only be born when a lower realm was about to be destroyed. In the ancient realm, there were 3,000 lower realms. 3,000 lower realms were about to be destroyed, but there were only 3,000 supreme treasures. Under normal circumstances, the ancient realm did not have the qualifications to give birth to a supreme treasure of killing. However, the sin throne in front of him was indeed a supreme treasure of killing, and it had appeared in front of him. A supreme divine weapon was a divine king weapon that had been infused with the power of a divine king. Just like the lifeless saber and the god-slaying sword, however, supreme treasures of killing were superior to divine king weapons. Its grade was unimaginably high, and it had never appeared in the 3 realms of the ancient realm. An ant from the lower dimensions like you with a lowly background, what ability do you possess to actually possess such a top-rate divine artifact of slaughter? As long as I kill you, this supreme treasure will belong to me, Man Kuangzuan. I want the divine king authority. I want this top-grade divine treasure too. Beneath the sin throne, Kuangzuan's face was filled with crazed greed. At this moment, the surging divine power around him burned even more fiercely. His spine, which had been constantly bent, actually slowly straightened under the support of the surging divine power. Moreover, Kuangzuan was like a burning sun at this moment, and he was actually enveloping the sin throne. He was actually trying to refine the throne of sin right in front of Feng Yu and seize control of this supreme divine artifact of slaughter. For Kuangzuan, as long as he could obtain this supreme treasure of killing and the Godslayer's authority, he would definitely become the strongest divine king in the history of the 3 realms of the ancient realm. Refining my throne of sin? Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself? Ha ha! Feng Yu sneered, his face full of mockery. At this moment, the Jian clan was razed to the ground. The divine power that Feng Yu unleashed had far surpassed the level of the strongest martial god, and was infinitely close to the divine spirit realm. Thus, the battle that broke out here could almost be seen as a battle between 2 divine spirit realm experts. Near the Jian clan, the martial gods who were still in the 9 realms of the human realm gathered outside the Xianfeng domain, watching this scene from afar. There were close to 100 of these martial gods, and most of them were old monsters who lived in seclusion. At this moment, all of them were floating above the water. Of course, there were also many martial gods from the Sacred Hall and the underworld. Among them, Sanguinati, infernal deity, and even the martial god Tianming from the underworld were among them. Chapter 1033. A top-grade divine treasure of slaughter? I didn't expect this kid to have such a good item. I'm afraid that even the lifeless God King, God Slayer, and Kenshin of Gojoseon would fight for it. Sanguinati, infernal deity, and even martial god Tianming's breathing quickened as they looked at the Sin throne. The three of them were qualified to intervene in the battle between Feng Yu and Man Wang Zun. The first two were the two supreme gods at their peak. As long as they used their trump cards, they could unleash the power of the divine spirit realm, but they couldn't last for long. As for Man Tianming, martial god Tianming was a divine spirit realm expert who had quietly descended from the heaven realm, so he was qualified to intervene in the battle between two divine spirit realm experts. However, at this moment, the three divine spirit realm experts were still outside the Xianfeng domain and had no intention of intervening. There was no other reason. The battle between Feng Yu and Man Wang Zun had reached its climax, and the power they unleashed was enough to make their scalps tingle. A top-grade divine spirit realm expert. Whether it was Man Wang Zun or Feng Yu, the power they unleashed in the battle was at this level. Man Quangzuan is one of the 10 supreme gods. He's a veteran of the 10 supreme gods. He's always scheming, and he's even occupied the body of a divine spirit. But Feng Yu is strange. He's just an ant from the lower realm. How can he possess a top-grade divine treasure of slaughter and the combat strength of a top-grade divine spirit realm expert? Outside the Xianfeng domain, the three supreme gods were frowning and puzzled. The battle in the Jian clan was coming to an end. Man Wang Zun, you can die now. At this moment, Feng Yu stood in the sky, and the Sin throne, which had returned to its original size of 30 meters, was standing under his feet. As soon as he said that, Supreme Barbarian Lord stretched his muscles and bones. Dazzling runes shone like stars on his 100,000-foot-long body. Supreme Barbarian Wang sneered. You think you're qualified to boast like that? When you and I exchanged blows just now, we were merely evenly matched. I'm a true divine spirit realm expert. You're just relying on a top-grade killing divine treasure to temporarily obtain the power of a divine spirit realm expert. Why are you talking about killing me? Wang Zun sneered. Although he didn't put Feng Yu in his eyes when he said these words, his eyes subconsciously carried a mocking look. Man Wang Zun wasn't the only one who found Feng Yu's words laughable. Even the three gods outside the Xianfeng domain felt the same way. This Feng Yu is too young and arrogant. How dare you not put the supreme god in your eyes? You are simply ignorant to the extreme. In the end, who the hell does he think he is? Didn't he rely on the inheritance of the two divine kings and the top-grade killing divine treasure to reach his current level? Without these three things, even if he is in the divine spirit realm, in front of us supreme gods, he is nothing but a dog's fart. Sanguinati and infernal deity sneered. At this moment, they also realized that Feng Yu wasn't the reincarnation of some godslayer. When they recalled the ghost sword god who died in Feng Yu's hands and Shinmyozan from the proud dragon martial city, they felt a little more malicious towards Feng Yu. If they had the chance, they would definitely kill this kid. Arrogant and arrogant. Martial god Tianming glanced at Feng Yu with a disdainful look. At this moment, in the sky, Feng Yu finally revealed the reason why he dared to speak so arrogantly in front of Supreme Barbarian Wang's body. On the Sin throne, Feng Yu wore the Scarlet Flame armor and held the Scarlet Flame divine sword. His aura rose to the peak of the 7-star martial god realm. Is this all you've got? Seven-star martial god. He. Wang Zun sneered. Rolling divine power burned like the sun in the sky. On his body, there were dazzling runes shining like stars. But in the next moment, Wang Zun couldn't sneer anymore. The sin throne beneath Fang Yu's feet was covered in a strange, blood-like godly power of slaughter, which gradually surrounded his body. Seeing this scene, Wang Zun felt that it was extremely familiar. Previously, in the netherworld, Fang Yu borrowed Godslayer's divine power from somewhere. Godslayer's divine power was the killing divine power. In the end, the supreme Tao of slaughter condensed into the Godslayer sword, which was as thick as blood. Could it be? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. In the four Godslayer swords, only Godslayer's godly king authority was left. There is no inheritance of his supreme Tao of slaughter. Even if you have Godslayer's killing divine power, you can't perform the terrifying Godslayer sword. You can't kill me. Fang Yu, don't bluff. Today, only one of us will be able to walk out of the Jian clan alive. Barbarian Wang Wang roared in anger, his roar reverberating throughout the 9 regions as if he was mocking Fang Yu's bravado. But it was more like he was trying to convince himself that Fang Yu couldn't use the God-slaying sword. The God-slayer sword. Fang Yu indeed couldn't perform it. In the God-slayer imprint and the 2 God-slayer sword fragments left behind by Godslayer, there was no inheritance or cultivation method for this sword. However, Fang Yu had the inheritance of another godly king, and that godly king's strongest sword, the God-slayer sword. In addition to being the successor of the God-slayer sword, Fang Yu was also the direct descendant of Kenshin of Gojoseon. This God-slayer sword was also in Kenshin of Gojoseon's memory. With Fang Yu's 7-star martial god realm cultivation and the killing divine power surrounding the Sin Throne, Fang Yu was qualified to perform this sword. As for the supreme barbarian king in front of him, he had stolen a portion of the Sword God King's Sword Tao authority. He also knew the God King of Annihilation's sword. Unfortunately, Wang Zun's soul had yet to merge with his body, so he couldn't use his body as a sword to perform the God-Slayer sword. If Wang Zun could really perform this sword, the power he could unleash would be more than that of a peak level 1 deity. The power of the God-Slayer sword could easily kill a level 2 deity. If that was the case, the battle would have ended with Fang Yu's death. Who said I'm going to perform the God-Slayer sword to kill you? You're not worthy of me performing this sword. Previously, in the ghost prison, you slashed me with the God-Slayer sword. Today, I'll return it to you. Fang Yu's voice was exceptionally indifferent. At this moment, Fang Yu raised the scarlet fire divine sword in his hand high, and the killing divine power around him that was as viscous as blood adhered to it. Then, on the scarlet fire divine sword's blade, the aura of the killing divine power and the sharpness of the sword principle appeared together. The God-Slayer sword. At the same time, in the sky, opposite Fang Yu, the 100,000 feet tall man Wang Zun's pupils suddenly shrank. His face was full of fear, and his body trembled violently. Chapter 1034. Impossible. Wang Zun instinctively took a step back. With your martial god realm cultivation, you aren't qualified to use the God King Destroyer sword. How can you use it? In order to perform the Sword God King's strongest sword strike, one must at least be at the first level of the Godly Spirit Realm and have reached the Godly Spirit Realm. You're bluffing. I don't believe it. Barbarian Wang Wang roared madly, but his body retreated step by step. He was afraid, he was panicking, he didn't dare to become Fang Yu's enemy. If Fang Yu could really wield this sword, with his current state of Supreme Barbarian King, the combat strength of a first-level Divine Spirit, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. He would die for sure. If Fang Yu could use the God King Destroyer sword, let alone Wang Zun, Even if all of us attacked together, we would still die. Outside the Xianfeng domain, Sanguinati and Infernal Deity looked pale. They had the urge to run away from this dangerous place. No matter who it was, they would die in front of the God King Destroyer sword. If Fang Yu could use it, he would become the strongest expert in the mortal world. Even the supreme gods would have to bow down to Fang Yu in the mortal world. The God King Destroyer sword. If that's the case, I'm no match for him. I must retrieve the third god-killing sword fragment as soon as possible. I can't ruin the plan of the two divine masters. Perfect. Wang Xun and Fang Yu are fighting fiercely. They have no time to deal with me. This is the best chance for me to take the god-killing sword fragment from the Jian clan. Martial god Tianming flung his sleeve. His eyes darkened. Without hesitation, he concealed his aura and headed toward the Jian clan in the Xianfeng domain. Boom! Above the Jian clan, the sky suddenly darkened because all the light and heat were devoured by the scarlet fire divine sword in Fang Yu's hand. With Fang Yu as the center, the space within 100,000 feet and the world within 100,000 miles began to distort violently, as if it couldn't withstand the descent of this sword. God Slayer's godly power and the God King of Obliteration's sword of God. At this moment, Fang Yu's sword could be said to be a combination of the supreme way of slaughter and Kenshin of Gojoseon's supreme way of the sword. Although it wasn't the god-slaying sword, the divine power of slaughter surrounding the Sin throne was the genuine supreme Tao of slaughter. At this moment, Wang Xun no longer had the slightest bit of wishful thinking. Fang Yu was actually able to use Kenshin of Gojoseon's highest achievement in swordsmanship, the God King Destroyer sword, with his 7-star martial god realm cultivation. Moreover, this combined version of the God King Destroyer sword was obviously more powerful than the original God King Destroyer sword he had used in the Ghost Prison. Even 10 top-notch level 1 deities would be reduced to ashes by this sword strike. Moreover, he only had the combat strength of a peak stage 1 divine spirit. It was impossible for him to escape. If he wanted to escape, he would only die even faster. If he fought, he couldn't fight. If he fought, his soul would be destroyed and he would be turned into ashes by this sword. Thinking of this, Wang Xun's face darkened and he said slowly, "Fang Yu, you can't kill me. In this world, I am the only one who knows where the third fragment of the god-killing sword is hidden. I'm sure you've noticed that you, who have 2 god-slaying sword fragments, can't sense the aura of the third god-slaying sword fragment in the Jian clan. If you kill me, you won't be able to obtain the god-slaying authority and become the new god-slayer of the ancient realm." Hearing this, Fang Yu raised the crimson fire divine sword from the Sin throne. His divine force of massacre and supreme sword Tao converged, and the mutated version of the God King of Annihilation's sword of annihilation stopped in the air, unable to slash down. Wang Xun had grasped Fang Yu's weakness, the god-slaying authority. Fang Yu was ambitious enough to obtain the god-slaying authority. After all, if he collected 4 god-slaying sword fragments, he would be able to control everything about the Godslayer and become a powerful Godslayer. This was a great temptation. Even with Fang Yu's temperament, he hesitated at this moment. "Speak. What must I do for you to give me the information about the third god-slaying sword fragment?" Fang Yu looked down at Wang Xun from the sky. The scarlet fire divine sword was still held high in his hand and his eyes contained a dangerous aura. Now that his life was no longer in danger, barbarian Wang Wang's attitude became arrogant once more. This was especially so when he saw that the crimson fire divine sword in Fang Yu's hand was unable to withstand the power of the God King Annihilation sword for long. Cracks had appeared on it. Wang Xun revealed a playful expression as he proposed a condition to Fang Yu. "Simple. You little brat, be my slave for 3 years and I'll be happy. I'll naturally tell you where the third god-slaying sword fragment is hidden. Perhaps only the supreme barbarian lord would be so reckless as to say such words. Clearly, the life and death of the barbarian lord were completely in Feng Yu's hands. Ha! Feng Yu revealed a cold smile. He had also sensed that tiny cracks were continuously appearing on the scarlet fire divine sword in his hand. Even if Wang Zun's condition was to spare Wang Zun's life, Feng Yu wouldn't agree to it. Not to mention, this was such a harsh and humiliating condition. Since Wang Zun didn't have the slightest intention to hand over the third god-slaying sword fragment, Feng Yu didn't need to worry about it anymore. If he couldn't find it in 10 years, then it would be 100 years, 1,000 years. Even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground in the entire ancient domain, Feng Yu would be able to find the third and fourth god-slaying sword fragments sooner or later. Die for me. Feng Yu slashed down with the scarlet fire divine sword in his hand. In an instant, the terrifying radiance of the God King Destroyer sword burst out from the Xianfeng domain at this moment. Terrifying divine might wreaked havoc. Wherever the scarlet variant version of the God King Destroyer sword passed through, the entire void would explode and shatter into pieces. Supreme Barbarian Wang Wang was scared out of his wit. His eyes nearly popped out of their sockets as he looked at Feng Yu in disbelief. How dare you kill me? The third god-slaying sword fragment is in my hands. It's the last god-slaying sword fragment in the human world. If you kill me, you won't be able to get the third god-slaying sword fragment. You won't be able to inherit the god-slaying sword for the rest of your life. Wang Zun roared. Facing the incoming God King Destroyer sword, he roared like a madman and burned everything he had. Divine power, spirit soul, even lifespan. He burned everything he could to obtain enough power to block this terrifying God King sword of slaughter. Unfortunately, he wasn't qualified. With the God King Destroyer sword, even if Wang Zun in the Netherworld was still alive, the two Wang Zun wouldn't be able to resist Feng Yu's variant version of the God King Destroyer sword. Chapter 1035. Under the giant scarlet sword, the Xianfeng domain was shattered. The terrifying blood-red sword shadow almost devoured everything that it could. Supreme Barbarian Lord's body didn't even make a sound before it was engulfed by the giant scarlet sword. The last of the 10 supreme gods, Wang Zun, who once occupied Wang Zun's fate, had also completely fallen at this moment. Man Wang Zun has fallen? Outside the Xianfeng domain, Sanguinati and Infernal Deity, the 2 supreme gods, were both in a daze. The God King Sword of Destruction. This God King Annihilation Sword was truly terrifying to the extreme. It had devoured Wang Zun's body, and even half of the Xianfeng domain's heaven and earth, leaving no way for man Wang Zun to survive. Previously, the 2 supreme gods had the idea of benefiting from the fight between the Sandpiper and the Clam. They wanted to intervene at the last moment and seize the fragments of the god-killing sword as well as the top-killing divine treasure in Feng Yu's hands. But now, they had no greed at all. Only endless panic and fear for Feng Yu were left in their hearts. Run! Run! In the past, the 10 supreme gods, Shinmiozan, Yi Wangzuan, and Wang Zun, have completely perished in his hands. If we don't run now, I'm afraid there will be 5 supreme gods. The 2 supreme gods' scalps were numb, and they were extremely terrified. At this moment, they did not dare to stay any longer. Their bodies turned into flowing light and tore through the void. Once again, they were like when they were in the Netherworld, rolling and crawling as they frantically fled back to the Sacred Hall's encampment. The 2 dignified ultimate gods, the supreme gods of the past, did not care about their reputation at all. Previously, when they were in the Netherworld, they were afraid of Godslayer's reincarnation. Now, they were completely terrified of Feng Yu. Today, the entire mortal world was shaken because of the death of the Jian clan's ancestor, a supreme god who walked in the mortal world. Feng Yu's name resounded throughout the 9 domains of the mortal world. Even the other 9 martial gods' forces that had secluded themselves from the world knew about the Jian clan's destruction and the death of Wang Xun, the Kanzu god. The Jian clan was removed from the 12 martial gods' forces. The name of Feng Yu, who had replaced Supreme Barbarian King as the #1 divine spirit powerhouse in the human world, was gradually known by many powerhouses in the 9 regions of the human world. Not long after, the 9 domains in the mortal world, the domain of the 9 domains of the mortal world, the gods' forces of seclusion and seclusion for 3,000 years. Although the 10 supreme gods had not recovered to their peak level in the past million years, none of them had died completely and their souls were scattered. However, Feng Yu, a lowly creature from the mortal world, had grown rapidly since his arrival. He had reached the level of Wang Xun 2 times in a row and killed a supreme god. Such behavior really frightened the 2 saint masters of the domain. They did not hesitate to seal their seclusion for 3,000 years and expressed their allegiance to Feng Yu. Unfortunately, the 2 supreme gods did not know that they had never appeared in Feng Yu's eyes. The God King Annihilation sword that Feng Yu used was formed from the godly power of slaughter, and it was also mixed with the supreme Tao of slaughter. It could be said that it could not be regarded as the original Kenshin of Gojoseon's supreme Tao of sword at all. This sword should be called the God King Destroyer sword. Under the God King Destroyer sword, almost half of the entire Xianfeng domain was destroyed and turned into a mess. It was unknown how many creatures were killed by this sword. The battle between the supreme gods had dragged on for a long time in the ancient domain. It could be said that it was enough to wipe out billions of creatures in a domain. For the ancient domain, this battle of the supreme gods had ended quickly and the casualties were low enough. In the sky above the Jian clan, Feng Yu's eyes were closed. 2 shards of the God King Destroyer sword were floating in his hand. He was sensing the location of the 3rd shard of the God King Destroyer sword. After a long time, Feng Yu finally opened his eyes, his brows tightly knitted together. I can't find it in any of the 4 directions. I can't even find the aura of the 4th shard of the God King Destroyer sword, let alone the one in the Jian clan. Damn it. What the hell is going on? I remember that when 2 shards of the God King Destroyer sword were gathered, I, as the successor of the God King Destroyer sword, could sense the location of the remaining 2 shards. When 3 shards of the God King Destroyer sword were gathered in the God King Destroyer imprint, the 4th shard should have appeared by itself. Feng Yu's eyes were filled with anger. That damned old ancestor of the Jian clan, Wang Xun, had been killed by him. Even when he was about to die, he was still so restless and had caused so much trouble. Sigh. Let's check it out bit by bit. Let's start with the Jian clan. I don't believe that Wang Xun would keep the 3rd shard of the God King Destroyer sword far away from him. Feng Yu sighed. Then, on the Sin throne, his martial god realm spiritual energy shrouded the entire Jian clan. It even spread out of the Jian clan. At this moment, Feng Yu did not notice that in the depths of the Jian clan, in the abyss under the mountain where the martial god realm ancestors of the Jian clan were cultivating in seclusion, martial god Tianming was standing in the abyss. He kept diving down and quickly reached the bottom of the abyss. The abyss was shrouded in thick black mist at all times. However, the bottom of the abyss was full of vitality, and it was a beautiful sight. Even demonic beasts were born here and lived here. At this moment, at the center of the abyss where endless vitality gathered, there was an ancient God King tree that was 100,000 feet tall. Unfortunately, although the ancient God King tree was full of vitality, its branches were withered and it did not have any intelligence. This was because there was a sharp blade on the God King tree's trunk that had pierced through it. The tip of the sword was the 3rd shard of the God King Destroyer sword that Feng Yu could not find. It was also the last shard of the God King Destroyer sword. As for the fourth shard of the God King Destroyer sword, it was the hilt of the God King Destroyer sword. After reaching the bottom of the abyss, Martial God Tianming finally stopped concealing his aura of divine spirit realm. He quickly walked to the front of the withered tree and looked at Fang Yu, who was still looking around in the sky above the Jian clan. His lips curled into a mocking smile. Ridiculous! This ant from the lower realm is ridiculous! The third shard of the God King Destroyer sword was right in front of his eyes. However, he didn't notice it at all. It's so easy for me. Chapter 1036. As Martial God Tianming was about to take the third piece of the God-slaying sword from the God Spirit ancient tree, an unexpected figure had appeared in the area. The power of the God-slaying sword. Anyone who manages to collect the pieces will have the right to inherit the throne of the God Emperor and become the new God Slayer. It belongs to me, Xian Mingzuan. Two cold roars that overlapped with each other resounded from the bottom of the abyss at this moment. Following it, the sound of wind breaking could be heard. Bang! The ancient bell chimed. An ancient bell over 100 zhang tall with a blinding golden glow and an ancient aura of death sprang at Martial God Tianming. A mere martial highness? Hee! You're just an ant among ants. How dare you attack me, a god spirit from the 9 heavens? Are you tired of living? Martial God Tianming let out a hollow laugh. He flicked his finger to suppress the ancient bell and kill Xian Mingzuan. Bang! The ancient bell chimed. A series of deafening chimes echoed in Martial God Tianming's mind. The God Spirit Realm cultivator was stunned for a brief moment. The extreme grade true treasures were born in the lower realm that was about to be destroyed. Every extreme grade true treasure was unique and had unparalleled strange power. Back in Fang Yu's world, the Xianming Bell was a terrifying object that the world-suppressing Martial Emperor Realm experts called the Doomsday Bell when it was rung. Martial God Tianming. Even though it was shocking that a God Spirit Realm cultivator was affected by the bell, it was still within his expectations. This piece of the God-slaying sword is mine. Xian Mingzuan burst out laughing. He moved at lightning speed. The Xianming bell in his hand had returned to the size of his palm. It circled in his hand to resist the pressure of the ancient bell. Finally, he reached the godly spiritual ancient tree with his insignificant cultivation. He quickly reached out and grabbed the godly slaughter sword fragment in his hand. You die. A furious roar echoed in the bottomless abyss. Martial God Tianming was enraged. Who was he? He was the Martial God Tianming, a divine spirit realm existence, a true god above the 9 heavens. 100,000 years ago, he was one of the 3 most powerful martial gods who dominated the human world. Now, he had been tricked by a nobody and had even lost his third piece of the god-slaying sword. Such actions could be said to be rubbing his face on the ground. Endless killing intent rose in his heart. Die. Martial God Tianming tore through the air and attacked. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to use all of his divine power, he might have penetrated Wang Zun's arrangements in the bottomless abyss and attracted Fang Yu's attention. At this time, he should have obliterated this damned ant as a deity. Stop him. All of you, attack together. Even if you die, you have to stop him for a moment so that I can escape successfully. Reverend Xian Ming roared. When he arrived in the ancient domain, he was suppressed by the experts of the Jian clan and imprisoned in the Abyss prison. Many otherworld suppression martial emperors were imprisoned with him. During this period of time, it wasn't that he didn't do anything and was content to be a prisoner. He, Xian Mingzuan, used Martial Emperor Lin to completely refine the Xianming Bell. Then, he used the power of the Xianming Bell to completely refine Martial Emperor Lin's true soul into a puppet soul that could block disasters for him. During this period of time, he could have escaped long ago, But he didn't because he knew about the existence of the God-slaying authority and wanted to reach the God-King authority in a single step. In the bottomless abyss, all the prisoners in the Abyss prison were secretly controlled by him with the Xianming bell. There were even many martial emperors, half-step martial gods, and martial god realm spirits. Today, he finally had the chance. If Fang Yu can soar in the ancient domain, I, Xian Mingzuan, can do it too. All I lack is time to grow. To be able to obtain the Xianming bell's acknowledgement, I, Xian Mingzuan, am also a person with great luck. As long as I have time, I will definitely reach Fang Yu's level. I am qualified to compete with him for the God-slaying authority. The Xianming bell trembled. Boom! The abyss exploded, and a dark door appeared in front of Xian Mingzuan, who was running away. He only needed half a step to leave with the third fragment of the God-slaying sword and head to the other regions of the ancient domain to grow. Unfortunately, martial god Tianming wasn't willing to give him the chance. Die! Martial god Tianming roared and charged toward Xian Mingzuan. Xian Mingzuan's life was in danger, but the Xianming bell in his hand unleashed a terrifying power. Boom! In an instant, on the cliff of the bottomless abyss, numerous figures were panting as they flew over. Their eyes were flickering with the silhouettes of golden ancient bells. After setting foot in the ancient domain, the Xianming bell underwent an extraordinary change and became even more mystical. On top of that, it was one of the top treasures among the extreme grade true treasures. It was probably only below the god-slaying treasures. If it weren't for the fact that there was only one top-tier god-slaying treasure, it would have been occupied by Fang Yu's Sin Throne. Xian Mingzuan's Xianming bell might even evolve into a top-tier god-slaying treasure. Unfortunately, Xian Mingzuan was imprisoned here and couldn't grow. The Xianming bell was also a burden to him, so it was too late. From then on, the Xianming bell would always have the chance to evolve into a top-tier god-slaying treasure, but it would never become a top-tier god-slaying treasure. It would no longer be a top-tier god-slaying treasure. 90 million years ago, the Xianming bell was the top-tier extreme supreme treasure that had attracted dozens of god-slaying kings and god-slaying venerables to fight for. The lifeless god-slaying king had also participated in the battle. In the end, he was severely injured and had to pass away. As for the Xianming bell, it had disappeared outside of the ancient domain and landed in the lower realm, where Xian Mingzuan had obtained it. You're just a bunch of ants. If I wasn't afraid that Fang Yu would sense Hanshin's aura, you wouldn't have the right to act so presumptuously. Die! Die! All of you die! Martial god Tianming roared furiously. He moved at lightning speed and crushed the puppets under the control of the golden bell into dust. However, it was enough for Xian Mingzuan to buy some time. The Xianming bell's cooldown time was enough. He could activate the Xianming bell a second time to intimidate the God-Spirit realm existence and buy himself some precious time. However, Xian Mingzuan and martial god Tianming did not want to attract Fang Yu's attention, but they had unknowingly made a huge mistake. It was a fatal mistake that would surely attract Fang Yu's attention. Among the puppets that had come to assassinate martial god Tianming and were killed by him, one of them was called Qi Shao. Chapter 1037. Martial Emperor Qi Shao. After all, Martial Emperor Qi Shao was still carrying a golden treasure chest. On the system map, apart from Xian Mingzuan's extreme-grade treasure chest, this gold treasure chest could be considered the only slaughter treasure chest that Fang Yu had not obtained. Boom! Strong wind raged. Martial god Tianming and Martial Emperor Qi Shao brushed past each other. Their terrifying bodies were surrounded by strong winds. In an instant, Martial Emperor Qi Shao was reduced to dust. His soul was destroyed. His body was destroyed. Nothing was left behind. It could be said that the two of them had caused a huge disaster. Ding dong! Martial Emperor Qi Shao is dead. The last golden treasure chest on the slaughter treasure chest map has disappeared, the system's voice rang in Feng Yu's ears. Buzz. Feng Yu's body moved slightly. As expected. In the sky above the Jian clan, Feng Yu, who was known as the strongest martial god in the human world, suddenly withdrew from the state of divine sense detection as he stood on the Sin throne. Bang! The page of the slaughter map appeared. Feng Yu glanced at the golden treasure chest that represented martial Emperor Qi Shao. As expected, it had vanished into thin air. Even the extreme grade treasure chest was moving rapidly. Abyss. There was something wrong with the Abyss prison. It was probably something that Wang Xun had left behind. After his death, all the prisoners in the prison would be buried with him. Feng Yu's face was filled with shock and anger. His eyes were filled with a crazy killing intent. Golden treasure chest! My golden treasure chest! Damn it! Which bastard actually destroyed one of my golden treasure chests? Feng Yu was extremely angry. Even though he was a high-grade martial god, a golden treasure chest could contain many good things. It was worth looking forward to. In the end, it was gone in a moment of carelessness. It wasn't just the golden treasure chest. Even the extreme-grade treasure chest that Feng Yu valued even more was moving rapidly, as if it was being hunted. Martial Emperor Qi Shao and Xian Mingzuan deserved to die, but only Feng Yu could kill them. No matter who killed the others, they would be Feng Yu's mortal enemy. Where did you come from? Come out and face your death! Feng Yu roared. At this moment, the Sin throne under his feet expanded with the wind. A terrifying divine might was brewing. In an instant it grew to a size of 100,000 feet. It covered the sky and the sun as it ruthlessly pressed down on the abyss. Boom! The 100,000 feet long Sin throne was capable of suppressing almost everything. At the bottom of the abyss, martial god Tianming and Xian Mingzuan were startled. They could not help but curse. What happened? What's wrong with Feng Yu all of a sudden? Our identities and auras haven't been exposed in the slightest. Everything was fine. What are they trying to do? The third piece of the god-slaughtering sword is right here. There's no way he knows where it is. It's Wang Xun's plan after all. Martial god Tianming was enraged. Even if they were not exposed, they would surely be exposed under the suppression of the Sin throne. If he didn't use his divine power to resist the throne of Sin, even if it was him, his soul would scatter and his body would vanish. Ah! As for Xian Mingzuan, who was as weak as an ant, he screamed in terror. He did not hesitate at all. He was only a martial highness. He had yet to convert his cultivation into the martial highness realm. He activated the Xianming bell in his hand, trying to find a way to survive. As for the rift entrance, it had long been sealed off by the heavens and earth when the Sin throne arrived. It was gone. Die! Feng Yu's furious roar echoed in the abyss. Meanwhile, martial god Tianming and Xian Mingzuan immediately executed their moves in the invincible abyss. Martial god Tianming held a giant halberd like a god of battle. His battle intent soared into the sky as he swung the halberd at Feng Yu above the abyss. As for the dark abyss bell, it grew with the wind and became 1,000 feet tall. It contained a killing power that was almost identical to the evil throne, which was Saint Feng Yu's origin, and rushed towards the 100,000 feet tall evil throne. Bang! The heavens and earth shook vigorously. At that instant, the endless darkness in the abyss dissipated after the collision. Bang! A bloody mist exploded. The dark underworld bell crashed down without any damage. The brilliant golden bell didn't even dim in the slightest. It was only pushed back by the evil throne, crashing deeply into the abyss and into the withered godly spirit ancient tree. As for Xian Mingzuan, who was like an ant that did not have the chance to grow, his body exploded and turned into a bloody mist. Feng Yu didn't care about Xian Mingzuan's life or death. He also had the intention of collecting this extreme Dao treasure chest. As he thought, the system's voice echoed in Feng Yu's ears. Congratulations, the host has obtained the ultimate Tao treasure chest. The system is opening automatically to extract the power of the rules of ultimate Tao. As the system's voice was heard, an indescribable power of law, which was above everything, descended upon the mysterious underworld bell that had been blasted into the divine ancient tree. The Xianming bell was an ultimate Tao artifact. It had existed outside the ancient realm for 90 million years. Many godly emperors were fighting over it. It had its own consciousness too. The Xianming bell sensed danger. It took the initiative to flee toward martial god Tianming. It was trying to claim the Xianming bell as its master. What the heck? Martial god Tianming knew the Xianming bell was trying to claim him as its master when he saw the Xianming bell coming toward him. If it was under normal circumstances, now that such a high-level and mystical ultimate true treasure had taken the initiative to recognize him as its master, he would definitely be overjoyed. However, the Xianming bell was not the only thing coming at him. There was another strange power that seemed to be stronger than the power of the rules of ultimate Tao artifact. Martial god Tianming's instincts were telling him that if he dared to accept the Xianming bell, the power would kill him too. Martial god Tianming, who was a martial god, immediately lost his composure. He even felt a sense of fear. Piss off! You've offended Han Xin before, and now you're trying to bring trouble to Han Xin when you're in trouble. You're out of your mind. Piss off at once. Han Xin doesn't need you to claim him as its master. Martial god Tianming yelled in fear. He was trying to avoid the ultimate Tao artifact that was trying to claim him as its master. Bang! Martial god Tianming swung his huge halberd at the Xianming bell again. Chapter 1038. Facing the threat of death, martial god Tianming let out a furious roar and unleashed his full strength. The giant halberd was ferocious. Wherever it passed, the heavens and earth were annihilated. The void exploded, revealing the appearance of darkness and chaos. The power of this halberd could even easily kill a first-realm deity of the heaven realm. His battle prowess far surpassed the peak of martial god Tianming. It was a pity. He was still a step too late. The Xianming bell sped forward. Just as it was about to collide with the divine power of the giant halberd, its body started to turn illusory. It penetrated the giant halberd like air and headed straight for martial god Tianming. Martial god Tianming was terrified when the halberd missed its target. He immediately turned around and tried to flee. It was a pity. In the end, he was still a step too late. The dark abyss bell turned into an illusory shadow and went straight into his body, settling down in his divine spirit soul. At this moment, it had completely recognized him as its master. At the same time, the magnificent force finally followed the aura of the Xianming bell and rapidly approached martial god Tianming. No! Don't come over. This is an apex-dimensional precious treasure. I'll get it for you right away. Hold on a second. Oh! Martial god Tianming yelled in terror. At this moment, martial god Tianming began to panic when he saw the strange force. He could clearly sense how terrifying the force was. In fact, he was even more powerful than the two divine masters that he was loyal to in the heaven realm. No, not only that. The level of this mighty power was even superior to that of all other gods, including the paramount gods of the divine venerate level and the god monarch level thrones. Bang! Martial god Tianming disappeared. Instead, an ancient bell the size of a palm stood where martial god Tianming used to be standing. Ding dong! Something strange has happened. An error occurred in the opening of the Extreme Tao treasure chest. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the complete power of the 100 Battle Divine Tao and the complete inheritance and memories of martial god Tianming. Hearing this, Feng Yu's eyes flickered violently. In this bottomless abyss, how could the scene just now escape his eyes? It could be said that he had seen everything. Dark abyss bell. It sent 2 hosts away in a row, and even asked martial god Tianming, a passerby, to die for it. This ultimate supreme treasure is truly vicious to the extreme. Fang Yu sneered. At this moment the abyss was in a complete mess. The dense ink-like mist had disappeared, revealing the bottom of the abyss. The withered but vigorous ancient god tree, as well as the palm-sized evil netherworld bell, which was spinning non-stop, was the size of a human's palm. The tip of the god-slaying sword, which was surrounded by a terrifying murderous aura, was floating above Xian Mingzun's corpse. The 3rd fragment of the god-slaying sword finally appeared in front of Fang Yu. After seeing the fragment of the god-slaying sword, Fang Yu immediately realized what had happened in the abyss. It was obvious that Xian Mingzun was still as bold as he was in his previous world. He even dared to risk his life to compete for the fragment of the god-slaying sword in front of a divine spirit realm cultivator. Unfortunately, you don't have the chance to grow. Otherwise, you would be a formidable opponent in the human realm of the ancient realm. A monster genius. If you could grow stronger, I'm afraid Wang Zun isn't even worthy to carry your shoes. Fang Yu exclaimed. Following it, he waved his hand and summoned the god-slaying seal. The tip of the god-slaying sword and the 4th fragment of the god-slaying sword returned to the god-slaying seal. Bang! At that instant, the 3 fragments of the god-slaying sword gathered in the god-slaying seal, which unleashed a terrifying aura. Under such circumstances, as long as the 4th fragment of the god-slaying sword was still in the 9 realms of the ancient realm, it should have turned into a stream of light and unleashed the power of the god-slaying sword. It should have broken through all the seals and returned to Fang Yu's hand. The 4th fragment of the god-slaying sword. Ha ha! I'm invincible in the human realm. The divine spirit realm cultivator, Wang Zun, and the martial god Tianming, who I don't know why, have all died. Now, in the human realm, no one can compete with me for the god-slaying sword. The authority of the god-slaying sword belongs to me, Fang Yu. Fang Yu was filled with excitement as he waited for the arrival of the 4th fragment of the god-slaying sword. Then, he would immediately refine the 9 supreme divine crystal and step into the divine spirit realm in the shortest time possible. Then, he would wield the authority of the god-slaying sword and become the 2nd god-slayer. However, time passed little by little. The light pillar of the god-slaying sword shot up into the sky. Every living being in the 9 realms of the ancient realm could see it. However, they did not see the arrival of the 4th fragment of the god-slaying sword. It was the hilt of the first 3 fragments of the god-slaying sword. 10 breaths passed. 20 hours had passed. 10 days and 10 nights passed. In the Jian clan's territory, Fang Yu stood on the Sin throne. He stood in the sky and was enveloped by the light pillar of the god-slaying sword as he waited. Finally, Fang Yu's patience ran out and he became frantic. His eyes were filled with confusion. Why is this happening? Where did the 4th fragment of the god-slaying sword go? Why haven't I seen it return after 10 days and 10 nights? Buzz. His mind buzzed. All of a sudden, Fang Yu's eyes flickered intensely because he recalled what Supreme Barbarian Wang had said earlier. The 3rd fragment of the god-slaying sword in the Jian clan's possession was the last fragment of the god-slaying sword in the mortal realm. Could it be that the 4th fragment of the god-slaying sword is not only in the hands of someone else, but also in the heavenly realm or even the godly realm? As soon as this thought appeared, Fang Yu's face turned ugly. He could not help but look up into the sky. Above the 9 heavens was the heavenly realm. However, hundreds of thousands of years ago, the heavenly realm had cut off the path to the heavenly realm. The heavenly realm had shattered the heavenly realm's gate and cut off all connections with the 9 realms of the mortal realm. The godly realm was destroyed. The heavenly realm was sealed. Although the 9 realms of the mortal realm were vast and boundless, it was like an isolated island that cut off the path to becoming a god. Even in the 9 realms of the mortal realm, Feng Yu was invincible. He could be considered a divine spirit realm existence in the mortal realm. However, if Feng Yu wanted to set foot in the heavenly realm, there was nothing he could do. After all, the path to the heavenly realm had been cut off. Even if martial god Tianming or Wang Zun were here, there was nothing they could do. Chapter 1039. I was just one step away from inheriting the godly monarch's authority, but it was completely severed? How can I accept this? Feng Yu gritted his teeth and slowly descended to the bottom of the abyss. His face was full of anger. In order to vent the anger in his heart, Feng Yu punched out viciously at the 300,000-meter-tall godly spirit ancient tree that had long since died. At this moment, at the bottom of the abyss, the palm-sized Xianming bell finally found an opportunity. Taking advantage of Feng Yu's distraction and extreme anger, it turned into a stream of light and wanted to tear through the void and leave. However, how could Feng Yu allow it? Although there was a slight error in the extreme path treasure chest, and Feng Yu did not succeed in obtaining the extreme path nomological power of the Xianming bell. However, the extreme path nomological power was an indispensable part of the Sin Throne's extreme path nomological power. The Sin Throne was one with Feng Yu, just like a limb. How could Feng Yu neglect such an important matter? Leave? Do you think you can leave? Sin Throne, eat it for me. At this moment, Feng Yu's eyes were like lightning as he looked directly at the Xianming bell that was trying to escape. Boom! The Sin Throne rose again behind Feng Yu. At this time, it no longer needed Feng Yu's cultivation power to manifest. The Xianming bell seemed to be angry. At this moment, it no longer tried to escape. Instead, it frantically absorbed the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth, trying its best to clash with the Sin Throne. Unfortunately, Feng Yu would not give it the slightest chance. In the next moment, Feng Yu stepped on the air and stomped the Xianming bell into the dust. The Sin Throne pounced on it and frantically began to assimilate the ancient golden bell. In the beginning, the Xianming bell could still tremble frantically, wanting to retaliate against Feng Yu and the Sin Throne. However, in the end, it became weaker and weaker. At the last moment, the dark abyss bell disappeared. What replaced it was a dazzling golden color within the black and red colors that surrounded the throne of Sin. Boom! 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 The throne of Sin trembled unceasingly. At this moment, 3 black, gold, and red halos appeared amidst the entanglement of black, gold, and red. They were filled with a ferocious and frightening aura. In Feng Yu's perception, the nefarious throne had become even more powerful. At this moment, it was like a tender child that had grown into an adult. If Feng Yu were to meet barbarian Wang Zun again, he wouldn't even need to use the God King sword of massacre. Just the power of the Sin Throne would be enough to scatter barbarian Wang Zun's soul. Now, the missing piece of the throne of Sin has finally been filled. I can even kill a god at the peak of the second realm, in the skies above the Jian clan. Feng Yu's eyes lit up. Stretching out his palm, he found a figure on a cliff somewhere in this abyss. Xianjian Valkyrie. Senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie, whom he couldn't find when he first arrived at the Jian clan. At this moment, his eyes were full of emptiness. The 3 souls have been sealed again. Even their memories are severely missing. Have the memories of the Kenshin of Gojoseon's inheritance been erased? Anger appeared in Feng Yu's eyes. This barbarian Wang Zun was so ruthless. In order to monopolize the authority of the Kenshin of Gojoseon in the future, he had almost crippled senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie. Xianjian Valkyrie walked the path of the Kenshin of Gojoseon's sword. Now that the Kenshin of Gojoseon's inheritance had been erased, It was equivalent to crippling Xianjian Valkyrie's 100,000 years of sword attainments. Since that's the case, the memories that the Kenshin of Gojoseon gave me are no longer of much use to me. When I slashed out with the God King of Massacre sword, I had already comprehended my own path. Senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie, regarding the Kenshin of Gojoseon's direct inheritance, I will give it to you. Fang Yu muttered as he pressed his palm between Xianjian Valkyrie's eyebrows. Then, everything related to the Kenshin of Gojoseon's life surged into Xianjian Valkyrie's soul. At this moment, Xianjian Valkyrie was sitting cross-legged in the messy abyss. The seal of the three souls in his body had been undone once again, and millions of sword cries could be heard from his body. He was comprehending the Tao. After obtaining the memories of the Kenshin of Gojoseon's direct descendant, Xianjian Valkyrie, who had unparalleled talent in the way of the sword, began to deduce the path of a sword god that he wanted to walk. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. The human world gradually regained its peace. It was also at this moment, in the Xianfeng domain, above the ruins of the Jian clan, a loud sword cry resounded throughout the 9 regions. An unparalleled sharp sword aura slashed through the heavens and earth of the 9 regions. Today, I, Xianjian Valkyrie, am comprehending the Tao here. I will break through the void and use my unparalleled sword Tao to break through the barriers of heaven and earth, step into the heavens, and condense the position of a god. Xianjian Valkyrie stood in the heavens, and the sword intent around him let out a long cry, shaking the 9 regions and stirring up countless experts. Ever since the heavens had been sealed, the path to heaven had been cut off, and the door to heaven had been shattered. The path to becoming a god in the human world had been completely cut off. Breaking through the void and ascending to the heavens with his unparalleled sword Tao was something that far exceeded the limits of the martial god's power. Could anyone really do it? At this moment, Xianjian Valkyrie let out a low roar, and his body turned into an unparalleled divine sword that was hundreds of thousands of feet tall. He directly slashed at the barrier of the heavens above him. Unfortunately, even though Xianjian Valkyrie had comprehended the true essence of his sword Tao in the past 10 years and had comprehended the true essence of Kenshin of Gojoseon, it was still too difficult to slash out a path to become a god in the heavens. However, at this moment, a gentle voice rang out in the sky above the ruins of the Jian clan. Senior brother Xianjian Valkyrie. Junior brother, let me lend you a hand. The voice was gentle, and this voice entered the ears of all the martial gods in the ancient region's human world, and a look of reverence appeared in their eyes. The uncrowned king of the human world. The number 1 expert under the heavens. He was the god-slayer martial god, Fang Yu, who had once defeated a true god as a demigod. He was the god-slayer martial god. Since the peak battle of the Jian clan 10 years ago, which had shaken the entire human world, the number 1 martial god in the world had never appeared again. The divine king's sword Tao that the heavenly sword martial god had inherited, and the unparalleled sword Tao that he had comprehended, still couldn't slash out a path to heaven. Can he do it? In the human world, all the martial gods were nervous, and even the 2 great supreme gods of the sacred hall were full of anticipation. In the past, the master of the heavens had suddenly cut off the path to heaven, and it could be said that he had ruthlessly plotted against the many fallen gods who were scattered in the human world. Only by ascending to the heavens could these fallen gods cultivate to the divine spirit realm and return to their peak state in the past. Chapter 1040. I want the sky to shatter and a path to be born between the human world and the heaven realm. On top of a tall throne, 7 extraordinary wheels of light slowly appeared. The figure of a young man spoke with a somewhat sharp voice, as if he was giving orders to the heavens and earth. This person was Fang Yu, who had disappeared for 10 years. 10 years ago, he, who was at the 7-star martial god realm, used the King of Massacre sword to kill Wang Zun, a god who walked in the human world. Now, he had returned. His cultivation had already reached the limit of the human world, the peak of the martial god realm. His battle prowess was many times stronger than it was back then. He's actually commanding the world? How can the world follow his will? Even the strongest among the gods can't go against the will of the world. Someone exclaimed. But at this moment an incredible scene happened. The will of the world trembled in fear in front of Feng Yu. Boom! The sky collapsed. Countless pieces of land rose up and actually obeyed Feng Yu's orders, turning into the path to the heavens that had been cut off by the Lord of the Heaven Realm in the past. Not only that, even the door to the Heaven Realm, that had been shattered hundreds of thousands of years ago, was restored to its original state at this moment. Junior brother Feng Yu, you've become so strong. Xianjian Valkyrie looked at Feng Yu with a complicated expression and sighed faintly. In the human world, who would have thought that the heaven-slaughtering martial god Feng Yu, who could make the heaven-slaughtering martial god submit to the heaven-slaughtering martial god, was merely an ant that had just snuck over from the lower world 10 years ago. He was merely a venerable, and any expert from the ancient region could kill him. In the blink of an eye, more than half a year had passed. He swept through the northern region, stepped into the Jian clan, and fought with a human god realm expert. He became famous in the world and reached the supreme realm of glory. Now, although Feng Yu was also at the peak of the martial god realm, he was unfathomable to the extreme. He was at least 10 times stronger than the last battle 10 years ago. The 10 fallen gods of the ancient region, Yi Wangzuan, Wang Zun, Sun God, Moon God, Evil Demon Heavenly Master, Sanguinati, Infernal Deity, Shinmyozan, and the Good and Evil Gods. There's also the Reincarnation Heavenly Master who died in the cycle of reincarnation. The 4 God Slayers Authority Fragments. The last one is probably in the hands of the good and evil gods who occupy the heaven realm. Junior brother Feng Yu, if you ascend to the sky and descend to the heaven realm, you might not be a match for them as a peak martial god. The good and evil gods have already reached the peak of the second realm. They're only half a step away from regaining their status as paramount god. Xianjian Valkyrie vaguely advised Feng Yu. It was best to delay his ascension and cultivate for a few more years before stepping into the heaven realm to fight for the last fragment of the God Slayer's authority. To this, Feng Yu shook his head and laughed. Paramount gods can only be born in the divine realm. The strongest divine spirit that can be born in the heaven realm is only at the second realm. For me, 10 years have passed, and the strength I've accumulated is enough. I can kill a mere peak of the second realm divine spirit with a flip of my hand. Feng Yu said slowly, and his words were full of confidence in his own strength. One had to know that he hadn't been idle for the past 10 years. He had refined all 9 paramount divine crystal into his body. Although he wasn't at the divine spirit realm, Feng Yu could easily step into the divine spirit realm even in the human realm. It wasn't that Feng Yu couldn't step into the divine spirit realm, but that Feng Yu didn't want to. He wanted to step into the divine spirit realm the moment he obtained the God Slayer's authority, and then become the new God Slayer. 10 years ago, when the Sin Throne devoured the Xianming Bell, Feng Yu was qualified to fight the good and evil gods. Let alone now. Then I'll step into the heaven realm first, and use my unparalleled sword principle to explore the path for you. Xianjian Valkyrie said with a smile. Just as he was about to step into the heaven realm, Feng Yu had already appeared in front of the heaven gate, stepped in, and became the first person to ascend to the heaven realm. Then, Feng Yu's cold voice resounded throughout the entire heaven realm. Even the 9 realms in the human realm could hear it clearly. The good and evil gods, come out and hand over the last fragment of the God Slayer's authority. Boom! The human realm was in an uproar. Xianjian Valkyrie was stunned. Although he knew that Feng Yu was daring and presumptuous, he did not expect that he would be so daring as to not set foot into the divine spirit realm after ascending to the heavenly realm. Instead, he actually wanted to challenge two divine masters of the heavenly realm, the two utmost gods of the past, as a peak martial god. Now, the two supreme gods of the heaven realm were at the peak of the second realm. Junior, you're courting death. How many years has it been since anyone dared to speak to us in such a tone in the heaven realm? We've let you live in the human realm for 10 years. Since you've taken the initiative to come to us today, then hand over your life and the 3 fragments of the God Slayer's sword. The spiritual chi in the heaven realm was dense. In the distant horizon, a divine figure that was 100 feet tall was approaching on auspicious clouds. This person had 2 heads, one of which was ferocious and terrifying, as if the evil god had descended. The other head had a benevolent look, and its eyes were filled with pity for the people of the world, as if it was the great benevolent God. The good and evil gods. These 2 supreme gods' souls had been penetrated and mixed together during their battle with Godslayer 1,000,000 years ago. As a result, when they were reincarnated, their souls merged into one. They had 2 souls in one body and ended up with this strange appearance. The good and evil gods had merged into one body. Their battle prowess was also extremely terrifying. In the entire heavenly realm, there were quite a number of peak-stage second-realm deities who were shockingly talented and brilliant. However, hundreds of thousands of years had passed. There was still no peak second-realm deity who could shake the good and evil gods' position as the masters of the heaven realm. I'm afraid martial god Lu Tian is in trouble. They're peak second-realm deities. Moreover, they're the deities who have ruled the heaven realm for hundreds of thousands of years. In the human realm, there were countless exclamations. All the martial gods were nervous about Feng Yu. The only person who wasn't nervous was Feng Yu himself. Facing the so-called masters of the heaven realm, who had 2 souls in one body and were peerlessly powerful, Feng Yu sat quietly on the Sin throne. With a languid expression, he slowly extended a finger. The 2 deities were enraged. They were the masters who ruled the heaven realm. 1,000,000 years ago they were 2 of the 10 supreme gods. Now they were peak second realm deities and were only 1 step away from the supreme god realm in the past. How dare this brat be so arrogant? How arrogant! He was so arrogant that he had a death wish. However, in the next moment, unparalleled horror appeared in the eyes of the 2 deities of the heaven realm. They actually felt that the divine power in their bodies was being suppressed. However, they were already at the limit of the godly spirit realm in the ancient realm. It was no longer possible for a supreme god to be born from the higher realms. The brat in front of them was only a peak demigod. He wasn't even in the godly spirit realm. What did he do to make them feel this way? They felt as if they were facing a supreme god. Chapter 1041. In the heavenly realm, Feng Yu had turned the good and evil gods into ashes with just a point of his finger. Not even their souls were left behind. In the mortal realm, many martial gods who had witnessed everything through the heavenly realm's portal, especially Sanguinati and Infernal Deity, were in disbelief and were extremely shocked. So powerful, unparalleled power. Was this martial god Lu Tian's current strength? I was worried for nothing. Xianjian Valkyrie shook his head and laughed. At that moment, he looked at Feng Yu with admiration. 10 years had passed. They were both peak martial gods, but the gap between them was like a natural chasm that could not be crossed. In the blink of an eye, the good and evil gods had turned into ashes. In Feng Yu's palm, 3 god-slaying sword fragments were circling around. In the distant heavenly realm's palace, the last god-slaying sword fragment, the sword hilt, no longer had any shackles. It turned into the heavens and descended into Feng Yu's hand. At that moment, the god-slaying sword was completed. A long sword surrounded by the supreme slaughter Tao floated in front of Feng Yu. Feng Yu held it in his hand. At the same time, the last shackle that he had set in his body shattered. At that moment, Feng Yu's aura rose steadily as the 9 supreme divine crystal fragments in his body were completely refined. Boom! Divine Spirit Realm. Second stage Divine Spirit Realm. Third stage Divine Spirit Realm. After the 9 divine crystal fragments disappeared, Feng Yu's cultivation had already stepped into the peak ultimate god realm. Then, the god-slaying sword let out a loud sword hum. The supreme slaughter Tao had merged with Feng Yu and left a mark on the sin throne under Feng Yu. At that moment, the ancient region's 3 realms was shaken. All of the living beings in the 3 realms clearly understood one thing. The ancient realm, which had been silent for 1,000,000 years, had finally welcomed a new godly king. The god-slaying king, Feng Yu. The slumbering god-kings on the ancient god-devil altar were all startled awake. They stared at the terrifying aura rising from the ancient domain in fright. How can this aura be so powerful? Even the king of Godslayers couldn't reach this level when he was at his peak. Who is it? Did that kid inherit Godslayer's Tao? No! This is no longer just inheriting Godslayer's Tao. In fact, he has already stepped on Godslayer's shoulder and found his own Tao, an even more powerful and supreme Tao. Countless divine kings cried out in alarm, their blood boiling. Although they did not see Feng Yu with their own eyes, they already knew that the strongest god king in the history of the 10 Directions macro-world had been born. Alas! I really don't know what to say about this kid. I thought that after inheriting the authority of the Godslayer god, he would be considered amazing if he could inherit 80 to 90% of the power. Who would have thought that he would surpass his master? The Tao he comprehended is even greater than Godslayer's. Looks like I, White Divine King Kong Tewu, will be pushed down to 3rd place by the Great and Little Godslayer God Kings. White Divine King Kong Tewu gazed at the ancient domain. He could almost see Feng Yu's high-spirited face slowly walking toward them. As long as there was someone in the greater world and the 3,000 lower realms who held the authority of a God King, that person would come to the ancient domain. Then, that God King would definitely come here, to this ancient God-fiend altar, and resist the chaos world and the erosion of the ancient God-fiends with them. Kenshin of Gojoseon was like that. So was he. Presumably, Feng Yu was like that as well. When he comes, he will be able to command the power of the entire God-Devil altar. He might even be able to lead us to counterattack the primal chaos and take back the fallen greater worlds. God-Slayer God King. He must come, the white-clothed God King murmured. His eyes were filled with desire. Is this Godslayer's Tao? It's far inferior to the Tao I'm walking. No wonder Godslayer was haunted by his inner demons in his later years. His obsession was so deep that he couldn't walk out of it and chose to pass away in the Twilight Shrine, Feng Yu sighed. Wherever he went in the celestial realm, many gods would come to pay their respects to their king, the ruler of the 3 realms of the ancient domain. The authority of a god king ruled over the 3 realms. Feng Yu was the supreme ruler of the ancient domain. Feng Yu didn't stop along the way. He walked straight to the end of the celestial realm, where there was a door that had been sealed for 1,000,000 years. The celestial realm was soaked in the northern sea, the door to the deity realm. This door was connected to the celestial realm and the deity realm. As long as he opened this door, he would be in the destroyed deity realm. Feng Yu pushed open the door and walked in. The godly world was forever frozen at the moment when the godly Slaughter King passed away. The sky was filled with dusk. Here, even time was frozen. Even the stones that had been sent flying 1,000,000 years ago were still floating in the air. Feng Yu walked over slowly. As he walked in the sunset, He seemed to be in Godslayer's last memory. The 9 supreme gods were like the sun, besieging their king. Finally, Feng Yu arrived at the very center of the god world, where the dusk illuminated the ruins of the god world. Outside the shrine, there was a man with long black hair. He looked like an unruly youth, a rebellious youth, a middle-aged man, and an old man. The man sat cross-legged with a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. His eyes were tightly shut. Even though 1,000,000 years had passed, his body was still standing there, immortal. Godslayer's undying corpse. After 1,000,000 years, the 2 god-slaying kings, one big and one small, one in front and one behind, finally met. Feng Yu had surpassed his master. At this moment, facing this ancestor who had passed down his legacy to him, he did not dare to be the slightest bit rash. He bowed respectfully 3 times, making up for the formality of a master and disciple. Then, he sat cross-legged in front of the Godslayer king, bowed like a junior, and slowly told the story of his disciple. He told the story of the original world, the ancient domain, and everything that had happened in this world where time had stopped flowing. 100,000 gods and demons in the primal chaos invaded the 10 greater worlds and the lands of 100,000 lower worlds. This time, I left and set foot on the battlefront of the ancient Godslayer altar. I will change from defense to offense. This time, I will be willful and start a new struggle. I will make the 100,000 gods and demons in the primal chaos submit to me. Your disciple respects you, Master. After bowing respectfully, Feng Yu left the ruined shrine without looking back. He went straight to the depths of the deity realm, to the door that led to the outside of the ancient domain. An unknown amount of time passed. Under the dusk, a long sigh came from somewhere in the shrine. The primal chaos, the 10 greater worlds, the Godslayer camp, the deity camp, endless cycles of reincarnation. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.